Chapter 1501. Stop her? Yi Xian was speechless. He wanted to stop this woman too. But how could he stop her? He couldn't beat her at all. At this moment, the exalted goddess suddenly said, "Do you know what you're doing?" The mysterious woman did not stop. She smiled. "Of course I do." The exalted goddess looked at the mysterious woman. "You might not be able to control the situation." The mysterious woman smiled but did not say anything. Beside the exalted goddess, Yi Xian was curious. What is she doing? The exalted goddess slowly closed her eyes. Doing bad things. Yi Xian asked, "What bad things?" The exalted goddess looked at Yi Xian. "You're still laughing here. Don't you know that you're dead meat?" Yi Xian was speechless. Driven by curiosity, Yi Xian followed the mysterious woman. She did not seem to have any intention of hitting him anyway. Even if she did, he would not be able to escape. The exalted goddess followed beside him. Yi Xian looked at the mysterious woman. "What are you trying to do?" The mysterious woman said, "You have too many backers. I need to find more helpers or I won't be able to kill you." Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before asking, "Do you really hate me that much?" The mysterious woman nodded. Yi Xian said, "Can I spare my life if I surrender?" The mysterious woman stopped in her tracks and turned to look at Yi Xian. "Spare my life if I surrender?" Yi Xian nodded. The mysterious woman shook her head and smiled. "Don't be naughty." With that, she continued forward. Soon, she came to an underground well. Everything within a radius of millions of miles had been destroyed during the previous battle. However, this underground well had always been there. Looking at the underground well, the exalted goddess's eyes were extremely solemn. Yi Xian looked at the underground well. There were countless blood-colored talismans drawn on it. Yi Xian turned to look at the exalted goddess. "What's inside?" The exalted goddess did not speak. The mysterious woman suddenly laughed. "There's a very powerful person inside." "No, there are many of them. If I'm not wrong, the disappearance of the prehistoric civilization should have something to do with the people in this underground well, right?" The exalted god looked at the mysterious woman. "How do you know about the prehistoric civilization?" The mysterious woman glanced at the exalted god. "You are not the only ones who survived from the prehistoric times." The exalted goddess frowned. "Who else?" The mysterious woman smiled. She did not answer the question. Instead, she walked to the well and opened her palm. A powerful force condensed in her palm. The high god suddenly said, "Do you know how terrifying they are?" The mysterious woman nodded. "To be able to destroy an era, he definitely has some ability." The exalted deity said, "In order to seal them, countless experts from the prehistoric era sacrificed their lives. Do you really think you can control everything?" The mysterious woman smiled and said, "Give it a try." The exalted goddess shook her head. "They will not submit to you." The mysterious woman didn't say anything else. She suddenly punched the well. Boom! The seal on the underground well shattered and a terrifying aura shot up into the sky. The moment the aura appeared, the mysterious woman's eyes flashed with surprise. "Interesting." The exalted god's expression became even more solemn. Yi Xian's expression was also solemn. This aura was so strong. At this moment, a man in black slowly floated up from the well. The man in black was covered in black chains and there was a blood-red mark between his brows. At this moment, the man in black suddenly opened his eyes. In an instant, the black chains around him shattered but the blood-red mark between his brows did not disappear. The man slowly opened his eyes and his gaze fell on the mysterious woman. "You broke the seal." The mysterious woman nodded. "Yes." The man smiled. "I allow you to submit to me." The exalted god's expression was a little strange. Yi Xian suddenly walked in front of the mysterious woman and said, "This man seems to be looking down on you." The mysterious woman laughed. You're asking for a beating. With that, she suddenly disappeared. In the sky, the man's pupils shrank and he raised his arm to block. Boom! The man retreated thousands of feet. After the man stopped, he looked at the mysterious woman next to Yi Xian and grinned. You've missed a chance to change your fate. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly disappeared on the spot. Almost at the same time, the mysterious woman next to Yi Xian threw a punch. Boom! An afterimage retreated rapidly, and this retreat was several tens of thousands of feet. After the man stopped, his body was covered in cracks. The man looked at the mysterious woman in the distance. At this moment, his eyes were solemn. Who are you? The mysterious woman took a step forward and arrived directly in front of the man. The man's pupils constricted, and he was about to attack when a hand clamped down on his throat. A powerful force locked down his entire body, causing him to be unable to move. The mysterious woman slowly lifted the man up. She looked at the man and smiled. Do you understand the situation now? The man stared at the mysterious woman. Who are you? The mysterious woman smiled. From now on, I'm your master. Do you have any questions? The man grinned. My master? You. The mysterious woman suddenly clenched her right hand. Boom! The man's body exploded and turned into nothingness. She killed him. Down below, Yi Xian was struck dumb. Meanwhile, the mysterious woman suddenly turned to look at the well and smiled. Are you testing me with a clone? Meanwhile, a man walked out from within the well. He was exactly the same as the man from before. A clone. The man who came out first was just a clone. The man looked at the mysterious woman and smiled. I never expected such an expert like you to exist in this era. The mysterious woman smiled. Let's get straight to the point. I'll save all of you and you'll follow me for 3 years. Listen to my orders for 3 years. Do you have any questions? The man looked at the mysterious woman. What if I don't agree? The mysterious woman pointed at the man. Today is the day you die. The man narrowed his eyes and clenched his right hand. At this moment, Yi Xian, who was at the side, suddenly said, a man can be killed, but not humiliated. Hit her. The man turned to glance at Yi Xian. Who are you? Yi Xian blinked and said, I'm just passing by. The man stared at Yi Xian for a while, and then he suddenly frowned. The body of adversity. Meanwhile, the mysterious woman suddenly said, have you made up your mind? The man looked at the mysterious woman. I don't have the habit of kneeling when I'm born. Yi Xian suddenly clapped. Well done. You have guts. The man glanced at Yi Xian. Person with the body of adversity, how did you survive until now? Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, I was lucky. The man was speechless. In the sky, the mysterious woman suddenly opened her palm, and a black box appeared in her hand. The man's pupils constricted when he saw the black box. The Heaven and Earth Palace. The mysterious woman smiled. Do you want it? The man stared at the mysterious woman. Why is this item in your hands? The mysterious woman smiled. That's not the point. The point is that it's in my hands now. If you want it, I can give it to you. However, my condition is the one just now. The man clenched his fists and remained silent. Beside the exalted goddess, Yi Xian suddenly asked softly, Exalted goddess, what is this item? The exalted goddess glanced at Yi Xian. The number 1 treasure of our era. Yi Xian looked at the man in the distance. Will he be tempted? The exalted goddess said calmly, definitely. As expected, the man suddenly stretched out his right hand. Give it to me. I'll listen to your orders for 3 years. The mysterious woman smiled. I'll give it to you after 3 years. The man frowned and slowly clenched his right hand. The mysterious woman shook her head and smiled. You can try to snatch it. The man looked at the mysterious woman. After a long time, he slowly loosened his right hand. What do you want me to do? The mysterious woman smiled. Nothing for the time being. As she said that, she looked at the underground well. There were many powerful auras coming out of it. The mysterious woman said, "Let your men stay inside. When I need them, let them out." The man was silent for a moment. "As you wish." As he said that, he gently pressed his right hand in the direction of the underground well. In an instant, the underground well calmed down. The mysterious woman looked at Yi Xian in the distance and smiled. "Goodbye." With that, she turned and left. The man suddenly said, "I want to kill some people." The mysterious woman stopped in her tracks and looked at the exalted goddess in the distance. "Is it them?" The man nodded. The mysterious woman shook her head. "You can't kill them." The man looked at the mysterious woman. "I can do it myself." The mysterious woman smiled. "I said you can't kill them." The man frowned. Just as he was about to speak, a mysterious aura suddenly locked onto him. The man suddenly turned to look at the end of the horizon. He narrowed his eyes. "There are many strong people in this era." The mysterious woman smiled. "There are many more than you think. Also, let me give you a piece of advice. Keep a low profile in this world." With that, she turned and left. The man looked at the end of the horizon. A moment later, he followed the mysterious woman. In a short while, the two disappeared into the horizon. Yi Xian was silent. Damn, this woman called for another strong helper. Until now, he didn't know how many helpers this woman had called for. The exalted goddess looked at the right side of the horizon. After a moment of silence, she looked at Yi Xian. "That man is called Night God. He was the strongest in the prehistoric era. And he, in order to break through, built a super array. He almost sacrificed the people of an entire universe to break through. And the reason why the prehistoric era declined was because of him. His strength was weaker than that mysterious woman, but not by much. Now that they have joined forces." At this point, she didn't say anything else. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian turned to look at the horizon. By this time, Anlancio should have found Miss Ding, right? This ant is a bit fierce. I can't take it. P.S. I'm going back to my hometown. I've been too busy recently. There are many things to deal with. The outbreak might be delayed. Please understand. I'm really sorry. I rarely delay my outbreak. I'm not looking for an excuse. I'm really going back to my hometown to deal with things. I know I'll be scolded, but I have no choice. I'm really sorry. Chapter 1502. At the side, exalted God turned to look at the horizon. There, a little girl holding Xiaoyu turned and left. Exalted God pondered. The reason why the mysterious woman stopped was because of that little girl. Exalted God turned to look at Yi Xian. She knew that this guy had someone protecting him. But it was normal. If there was no one, this guy would have been toyed to death. At this moment, Yi Xian walked to the side and sat down with his legs crossed. In an instant, countless thunders and dark matter energy were emitted from his body. Gradually, Yi Xian's aura became stronger. Somewhere in the starry sky, Anlancio suddenly stopped. She looked not far away. In the depths of the starry sky, there was an ancient city. Anlancio came to the city gate. She looked at the top of the gate. There were 3 big words, Goat City. Anlancio frowned, Goat City? After pondering for a moment, she walked in. Inside the city, there were people coming and going. There were cultivators and ordinary people. Soon, Anlancio arrived at a small tavern. As soon as she entered the tavern, a woman in green came to greet her. She smiled, "Miss, this is your first time in Goat City, right?" Anlancio's eyes flashed with surprise, how did you know? The woman in green smiled. Miss, you look unfamiliar. Enlancio nodded. Is Miss Ding here? The woman in green looked at Enlancio. Are you looking for Miss Ding? Enlancio nodded. The woman in green sized Enlancio up. Miss, you are? Enlancio took out the sword spirit and Xiao Ta. When she saw the sword spirit and Xiao Ta, the woman in green's eyes suddenly narrowed. You, Xiao Ta suddenly jumped up. Little Qing, where is Mistress Ding? Little Qing smiled. Miss Ding went out. Enlancio frowned. Went out. Little Qing nodded. She looked at Enlancio. Is there something urgent? Enlancio said in a deep voice, something very urgent. Little Qing said, then I will contact her. Enlancio nodded, thank you. Little Qing took out a talisman and crushed it. Around 15 minutes later, the space in front of her suddenly trembled. After a while, she looked at Enlancio. She needs 5 days to rush back. Enlancio shook her head. It might be a little slow. Qing hesitated for a moment before she said, is it something very important? Enlancio nodded. Little Qing said solemnly, then I'll contact her again. As she spoke, she withdrew another sound transmission talisman and crushed it. After a long time, she looked at Enlancio. 3 days. She'll be back in 3 days. Enlancio said in a light voice, then I'll wait for her here. Little Qing nodded. All right. Saint level. When the night god followed the mysterious woman to the sacred region, the night god's expression immediately became solemn. In this place, he sensed many extremely powerful auras. At this moment, a woman appeared beside the mysterious woman. The trees were boundless. Tree Boundless glanced at Night God, then at the mysterious woman. The passage is open. The mysterious woman nodded. Let's go. The trees pointed forward lightly, and the space in front of them suddenly split open. The mysterious woman's group of 3 walked in, and it wasn't long before they arrived at a place of nothingness. A woman was sitting cross-legged in this world. Qing Zhu, the founder of the Taoist path. At this moment, Qing Zhu opened her eyes and turned to look at the mysterious woman. She smiled. Is something the matter? The mysterious woman grinned. Have you considered it? Qing Zhu shook her head and smiled. I'm not willing to live on my knees. The mysterious woman smiled. I'm not asking you to live on your knees. We can work together. Qing Zhu smiled. I heard that the 5th dimension is very good now. The mysterious woman nodded. It's better than when all of you were here. Qing Zhu grinned. It looks like I didn't misjudge you. The mysterious woman looked at Qing Zhu. So long as you nod, you can leave this place at any time. Qing Zhu shook her head. This place is pretty good. I'll stay here. The mysterious woman fell silent for a moment before she said, I respect your decision. She turned around and left after she finished speaking. In the distance, Qing Zhu slowly closed her eyes, and it was unknown what she was thinking. A short moment later, the mysterious woman's group of 3 returned to the bamboo house. Shu Wubian asked, You're not going to kill her? The mysterious woman smiled. There's no need for that. No matter what, she's a respectable person. Shu Wubian asked in a deep voice, When are you going to make your move? The mysterious woman looked at the depths of the starry sky. A moment later, she slowly closed her eyes. I can't sense her anymore. Shu Wubian asked, How are you going to kill him? The mysterious woman smiled. I've chosen a very good place for him. Shu Wubian was curious. Where is it? The mysterious woman smiled but didn't say anything. At this moment, a man suddenly appeared not far away. It was the martial emperor of the ultimate martial realm, Wu Li. At this moment, Wu Li had already reached the god realm. The mysterious woman smiled. Eternal realm. Wu Li nodded. The mysterious woman smiled. Faster than I expected. As she spoke, she suddenly looked to the right. Not far away, a powerful aura swept over. In the next moment, a man emitting death chi appeared in front of the four. The Undying Emperor. The Undying Emperor looked at the people beside the mysterious woman, and his expression instantly became solemn. Each of these people was stronger than the previous one. The night god's expression was calm, but he was shocked. Not because of the two people in front of him, but because of the people hiding in the dark. Some of their auras made him feel threatened. There were many experts here. The Undying Emperor looked at the mysterious woman. I'm here. The mysterious woman nodded. I'll bring you to a place. After saying that, she gently drew a line with her finger. The space in front of her split open, and the next moment, she walked in. Shu Wubian and the others followed her in. About an hour later, in an unknown starry sky, the space suddenly split open, and a group of people walked out. The mysterious woman was leading them. In the starry sky in front of the mysterious woman and the others, there was a blood-red door. Around the blood-red door were countless blood-red threads. Karma threads. At this moment, the night god suddenly said in a deep voice, "This is the legendary disaster gate." The mysterious woman glanced at the night god and smiled. As expected of the prehistoric era's strongest expert. You are really knowledgeable. The night god looked at the mysterious woman. This gate was a legend even in our era. I never thought that it would really exist, and I never thought that you would be able to find it. The mysterious woman smiled. It came to me on its own. The night god said in a deep voice, "What are you trying to do?" The mysterious woman smiled and looked at the disaster gate. I heard that one can enter the disaster realm through this gate. Actually, I really want to go in and take a look, but I don't dare. Shu Wubian looked at the mysterious woman. Even you don't dare? The mysterious woman said softly, apart from those three people, no one else dares to go in. If he goes in, he will die without a doubt. Because the karma on him is not his own. A large part of it comes from his father and sister. And the karma of those two. How terrifying is it? How can he bear it? Moreover, there is a universal law in it. With that, she slowly closed her eyes. Apart from those three people, anyone else who attacks will die. Shu Wubian said in a deep voice, "Will he go in?" The mysterious woman smiled. Force him to go in. After she finished speaking, she waved her right hand and put away the door of adversity. She turned her head and smiled. Let's go to the fifth dimension. Soon, the group disappeared into the starry sky. The northern wilderness. Yi Xian, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, suddenly opened his eyes. He stood up and a powerful aura suddenly swept out from his body. Immortal state physique. Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes and clenched his fists. At this moment, he felt that his body was filled with power, endless power. At this moment, the exalted god suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. She looked at Yi Xian. That woman has gone to the fifth dimension. Yi Xian said softly, she is going to make a move. The exalted god nodded. That should be the case. With that, Yi Xian chuckled. What's going to happen is going to happen. With that, he turned into a ray of sword light and disappeared into the horizon. Below, the exalted god slowly closed her eyes. At this moment, Mushi appeared beside the exalted god. She looked at the horizon. Should we help? The exalted god shook her head. We can't help anymore. Mushi was silent. She knew that the situation was no longer within the northern wilderness control. That woman alone could destroy the northern wilderness. Now, there was the night goddess. The exalted god suddenly said softly, the world is going to change. Dao sect. The third lady, who was sitting cross-legged in the hall, suddenly opened her eyes. After a long time, she said softly, is it going to start? With that, she stood up and walked to the entrance of the hall. She looked in the direction of the fifth dimension. This battle will definitely be exciting. I just don't know how many mysterious experts will appear. The fifth dimension. The mysterious woman and her group appeared in the starry sky of the fifth dimension. The mysterious woman waved her right hand and the door of disaster appeared not far away from her. The moment the door of disaster appeared, the entire fifth dimension was suddenly filled with densely packed blood-red threads. They were all Yi Xian's karma threads. The mysterious woman looked in the distance. There, a ray of sword light descended. The sword light dissipated and Yi Xian appeared in front of everyone. The moment Yi Xian appeared, the surrounding karma threads suddenly trembled. However, they did not rush towards Yi Xian. Instead, they slowly approached the door of disaster. Yi Xian looked at the door of disaster. This is prepared for me? The mysterious woman nodded and smiled. Yes. Go in. Yi Xian shook his head. I'm not going in. The mysterious woman laughed. You have to go in even if you don't want to. With that, she glanced at the starry sky and smiled. Don't hide. Since you're here. Then come out. In order to deal with all of you, I've been busy. After a moment of silence, a voice suddenly came from the starry sky. Do you really have to be so ruthless? Everyone looked in the direction of the voice. There, a woman slowly walked over. Chapter 1503. She held a halberd in her hand and wore snow-white clothes. The expressions of Night God and the others instantly became solemn when they saw her. The woman who had just appeared was extraordinarily strong. Night God fell silent while she felt extremely shocked in her heart. Are there so many experts in this era? Wu Li had an extremely solemn expression on his face as well. At this moment, he finally understood why she didn't just kill Yi Xian. The experts behind Yi Xian are stronger than the last. The mysterious woman gazed at Lady and grinned. Long time no see, Lady. Lady glanced at the door of misfortune, and then she gazed at the mysterious woman. What exactly do you intend to do? The mysterious woman smiled. It's very obvious. Lady shook her head. Do we really have to go to such an extent? She grinned. It's meaningless to speak of all of that now. Lady pointed her halberd at the mysterious woman. Then let's fight. Let's fight. Her voice rumbled like thunder while her imposing aura shot into the sky. The mysterious woman shook her head and smiled. I'm not your enemy. As soon as she finished speaking, Tree Boundless appeared in front of Lady. Lady gazed at Tree Boundless. You know Tian Ming's temper. Tree Boundless laughed coldly. Worse comes to worse than death. Lady nodded. Then bring it on. As soon as she finished speaking, the halberd in her hand suddenly stabbed forward. Hiss. The space in front of Tree Boundless split apart as a bone-piercing cold halberd stabbed towards her. A wisp of a cold smile curled up on the corners of Tree Boundless' mouth. She waved her hand, and then countless vines swept out from the space in front of her. In an instant, the halberd was coiled by the vines. Meanwhile, Lady suddenly shook the halberd in her hand. Bang! Countless vines were instantly transformed into pieces while Tree Boundless retreated explosively by 3 kilometers. As soon as she stopped moving, the space behind Tree Boundless shattered into pieces. A ferocious expression flashed through her eyes as she took a step forward, stretched out her right hand, and then made a light gesture. In an instant, countless vines sprayed out from the space around Lady, and they were like numerous pythons that stretched towards Lady. Besides that, a strand of formidable and mysterious energy enveloped Lady, and it was like a cage that firmly locked down the space around Lady. Tree Domain. Within the tree domain, the power of the tree vines increased by several times. Not only that, but the tree domain also had a powerful suppressive force. Lady slowly closed her eyes, and a moment of silence ensued before she took a step forward and stabbed with her halberd. Halt the blade. As her voice fell, the space around her suddenly became illusory. Following that, the tree vines began to crack inch by inch, and the boundless tree domain also disappeared bit by bit. This tree domain could not withstand the power of her halberd. At this moment, Tree Boundless suddenly disappeared. A green light flashed, tearing through everything. Lady's beautiful brows knit together slightly, and then she suddenly leaped up and slashed down with her halberd. Boom! An expanse of green light suddenly shattered, and then a figure retreated explosively. This retreat was over 10 kilometers away. It was the boundless tree. The mysterious woman below grinned. As expected of Lady. As she spoke, she looked at boundless tree. Just hold her back. Tree boundless stared fixedly at Lady, and her expression grew even more ferocious. She spread her hands open and said, "Come." As soon as the voice fell, the world below suddenly trembled. After receiving the summons of the tree boundless, countless leaves gathered from the world like a tide. Wherever the leaves passed, the entire space was torn apart inch by inch. The Tao city below was instantly torn to pieces. Fortunately, the people in the Tao city had already been evacuated by the White Emperor. Otherwise, who knew how many people in the Tao city would have died? Everyone here was visibly moved as they gazed at the endless leaves. Lady's expression was calm as she took a step forward, and then she swung her halberd forward. This attack caused the space before her to collapse inch by inch, and so did the countless leaves. However, the leaves seemed as if they were endless, and she couldn't sever them all no matter how hard she tried. However, the leaves were unable to harm Lady as well. Lady had always maintained the upper hand in their battle, but her expression was growing more and more solemn. Because a bloody mark had appeared on her palm at an unknown time. Moreover, the bloody mark was getting deeper and more numerous. It was the thread of karma. As soon as these bloody marks appeared, she felt like some sort of force was slowly restraining her. She knew that she had to end the battle as soon as possible. However, even she wasn't able to kill Tree Boundless in a short period of time. The mysterious woman withdrew her gaze, and then she gazed at Yi Xian and smiled. "It's best for you to enter right now. Otherwise, someone will die in a moment." Yi Xian gazed at the door of blood. He felt quite panicked when it appeared here, and he wasn't just panicked, he felt terror as well. It was terror that he couldn't restrain. He'd never had such a feeling in the past. He knew that once he stepped foot into the door, then he would be doomed. The mysterious woman grinned, "If you don't enter, then the entire fifth dimension will be buried with you. Because the calamity of this door is about to form, and your universe won't be able to endure it once it does." Yi Xian gazed at her while he held tightly onto the supreme sword in his right hand. He didn't want to accept his fate just like that. The mysterious woman smiled and said, "I know that your physical body has just broken through, and your strength is several times stronger than before. Furthermore, there's still that life fist. However, I can tell you that even if you burn all of your lifespan, your life fist won't be able to threaten me. Not to mention you, even if the Tao Sect's ancestor is here, his life fist won't be able to do anything to me. If you enter, I'll take this door away without harming the fifth dimension. However, if you resist with all your might and summon the power of faith, then once the calamity is formed, the fifth dimension will be destroyed in an instant. At that time, you won't be the only one to die, but everyone. Calamity, calamity, whoever helps you will be haunted by the calamity. Do you understand?" Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. He didn't want to accept his fate, but he also didn't want to bring everyone around him to die with him. At this moment, a hand suddenly grabbed his hand. Yi Xian opened his eyes and looked beside him. It was Nian Nian. Nian Nian smiled. "It's not the most desperate time yet." Yi Xian was stunned, and then he said, "Sister Nian?" Nian Nian smiled and said, "Yes." Yi Xian smiled and asked, "When did you recover your memories?" Nian Nian licked the candied fruit. "It's been some time. However, due to some reasons, I could only seal my memories." Yi Xian asked, "The cause of calamity?" Nian Nian nodded. "Yes." As she said that, she looked at the mysterious woman in the distance. "You really went big. You even attracted this thing." The mysterious woman looked at Mu Nian and said with a smile, "Miss Nian, you still chose to make a move in the end." Mu Nian laughed. I didn't want to make a move at first, but I can't just watch you force him to his death like this." As she said that, she put away the candied fruit and said with a smile, "You should have made thorough preparations. Tell me, are you my opponent or someone else?" The mysterious woman smiled and said, "No one else is your match." Mu Niannian blinked. "So, let's play. To be honest, I really want to fight you. After all, you're also known to be invincible under 3 swords. To be honest, I'm not convinced." The mysterious woman smiled and said, "I also want to fight you. However, you're not my opponent." Nian Nian glanced at the people behind the mysterious woman and said with a smile, "They're not my match." Night God suddenly stood up. He looked at Nian Nian and said with a smile, "Aren't you being a little too arrogant?" Nian Nian opened her palm and a sword appeared in her hand. The next moment, she slashed out with her sword. It was a very casual slash. In the distance, Night God's pupils suddenly constricted. He punched out, and space distorted under his punch. Boom! As a sword beam exploded, Night God retreated tens of thousands of feet away. Nian Nian waved the sword in her hand and the corners of her mouth curled up. "Is it wrong to say that you're weak?" Night God stared at Mu Niannian and was about to attack again when the mysterious woman suddenly said, "You're not her match." Night God gazed at the mysterious woman, and the mysterious woman smiled. "She's the 4th sword of the world." Night God didn't attack again because his right arm had split open, and a powerful strand of sword energy was raging within his body. He had to suppress the remaining sword energy within his body. Mu Niannian gazed at the mysterious woman and smiled. "If all the people you found are like this, then I'm quite disappointed." The mysterious woman smiled. "You can play with the cause of disaster." As soon as she finished speaking, the door of disaster suddenly trembled violently. A moment later, a blood-red bolt of lightning shot out, and its target was Mu Niannian. Mu Niannian's eyes narrowed slightly as she slashed down with her sword. Boom! An expanse of sword energy shattered, and Mu Niannian was blasted back by 3 kilometers. Yi Xian's face sank when he saw this. What exactly is the door of disaster? Mu Niannian glanced at the door of misfortune. In the next moment, she suddenly vanished, and a ray of light flashed by. The sword was like a clap of thunder. Before anyone could react, a ray of sword energy slashed down on the door of disaster. Boom! The door of disaster shook violently, and a wave of blood-red light shot out. Rumble! The sword energy shattered, and Mu Niannian returned to her original position. The door of disaster was not damaged at all. Around Mu Niannian, a dozen or so blood-red threads appeared. These threads were extremely strange. Lines of disaster karma. These lines of disaster karma wrapped around Mu Niannian, and she discovered that the vitality in her body was slowly disappearing. Not only that, but the spiritual energy around her was also moving away from her. The entire world was rejecting her. Mu Niannian frowned slightly. She was a 5th dimension Tendo. Logically speaking, the spiritual energy of the 5th dimension should not be rejecting her. After all, she was a 5th dimension Tendo. But at this moment, not only was the spiritual energy rejecting her, but even the world was rejecting her. Mu Niannian slowly closed her eyes. She opened her palms, and countless rays of sword energy crisscrossed around her. Hiss! 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 Ear-piercing sounds of slicing resounded incessantly around Mu Niannian. The space around her had been torn apart and erased, but the lines of disaster karma still existed. However, the lines of disaster karma had become slightly dimmer. The mysterious woman in the distance had a rare trace of seriousness in her eyes when she witnessed this scene. She knew how terrifying the lines of disaster karma were, but Mu Niannian's sword was actually able to affect them. Mu Niannian frowned deeply when she saw that her sword was unable to slice through the lines of disaster karma. She was just about to attack again when the mysterious woman suddenly said, "The more you attack, the more lines of disaster karma there will be, and the faster you'll die." Besides that woman, no one can resist these lines of disaster karma. Mu Niannian gazed at the mysterious woman. I thought you would fight me. The mysterious woman smiled. I'm not afraid of you, but I didn't come here today to spar with you. As she spoke, she gazed at Yi Xian. The calamity is about to form. If you don't go in now, then once it forms, the might of the calamity can easily destroy the entire fifth dimension tens of thousands of times. Even Miss Nian Nian won't be able to resist the calamity. Yi Xian gazed at the door of disaster. A blood-red cloud had appeared in the sky above the door of disaster, and countless blood-red strands of lightning were gradually gathering within the cloud. The calamity. Mu Niannian suddenly said, You've joined forces with the cause of disaster. The mysterious woman shook her head. Actually, I don't know what the cause of disaster is. I only know that when I go against Yi Xian, it will secretly help me. I tried to contact it earlier, but I never expected that it would actually respond and bring me this door of disaster. As she spoke, she gazed at Yi Xian and smiled. It seems that the cause of disaster really wants to kill you. And now, whoever helps you will suffer from the backlash of the cause of disaster. Yi Xian glanced at Mu Niannian. At this moment, an endless amount of death qi had appeared in Mu Niannian's body. Not only that, but a lot of turbid qi had also appeared in the fifth dimension. It was unknown where this turbid qi had come from. It was as if it had appeared out of thin air. This turbid qi was slowly corroding the origin of the fifth dimension. The mysterious woman looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian, if you don't go in, you will implicate everyone. Anyone related to you, as long as they help you, will die without a doubt. Also, it's best if you don't use the power of faith. Otherwise, everyone in the fifth dimension who believes in you will suffer the calamity. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. I'm only in the Dao realm. Do you have to go so far? The mysterious woman shook her head. You have too many helpers. Even if the plain-dressed woman doesn't make a move, I won't be able to defeat the people below if they join hands. Yi Xian looked at the door of disaster. At this moment, Mu Niannian suddenly pulled Yi Xian's hand. Don't surrender so easily. Yi Xian shook his head. I don't want to implicate you. Especially you. Mu Niannian smiled. Between us, why talk about implicating me? Isn't your problem my problem? Yi Xian smiled bitterly. Sister Nian. At this moment, the mysterious woman suddenly said, Yi Xian, you don't have much time left. Yi Xian looked at the mysterious woman, and the mysterious woman smiled. Don't have any delusions. I said before, I am invincible under the three swords. Who do you think you are? Are you worthy of being called invincible under the three swords? A voice suddenly came from the distant starry sky. The next moment, the space in the depths of the starry sky cracked, and a powerful aura swept over. P.S. The eruption has been delayed. Big brother, uncle, please be gentle with your scolding. I'm very sorry. Chapter 1504. Another expert had appeared. Night God and the others who stood by the mysterious woman's side turned to look towards the depths of the starry sky. A ray of light suddenly appeared there, and then the entire starry sky was torn apart. A sword instantly arrived above the mysterious woman's head, and then it descended in a straight line. Space shattered inch by inch at the moment the sword descended, and a powerful strand of sword energy shook the starry sky, causing the entire starry sky to crack inch by inch. It was an extremely shocking scene. The mysterious woman laughed with ridicule. You're still so arrogant. When the sword arrived 30 m away from her head, she suddenly shot into the sky and smashed her fist against it. Sky split punch. The sword shattered and the starry sky was obliterated by a single punch. Meanwhile, another ray of light slashed down. The mysterious woman smashed her fist forward again. Rumble. She instantly retreated explosively by over 3 kilometers in the face of this attack. A woman in a white robe stood where the mysterious woman had been standing just now. 2. The white-robed woman stood there with a sword in hand, and her gaze was icy cold. The expressions of Night God and the others instantly became extremely solemn when they saw the white-robed woman. Another extraordinary expert has arrived. Moreover, it's a swordsman. Night God took a deep glance at Yi Xian who stood nearby. Exactly how many helpers does he have? The white-robed woman turned to look at Yi Xian, and her expression instantly became savage when she saw the blood-red karmic threads that covered Yi Xian's body. She turned to look at the mysterious woman in the distance, that damnable woman. As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly vanished. In the instant that the white-robed woman disappeared, Mu Niannian also disappeared. The two of them had attacked together. It was obvious that they intended to kill the mysterious woman first. Mu Niannian and Tu were the best swordsmen in the world. So, how terrifying would their joint forces be? A cold smile arose on the corners of the mysterious woman's mouth as soon as the two women vanished, and then she took a step forward. The space around her instantly seethed, and then she clenched her right fist tightly before a strand of ghastly green flames swept out from it. A moment of silence ensued before she suddenly smashed her fist forward. Boom! The space around her was set ablaze, and a force capable of destroying heaven and earth instantly devoured the two sword lights. However, in the blink of an eye, she had retreated hundreds of thousands of feet away. When she stopped, there was a deep sword mark between her eyebrows and her throat. However, the two sword scars were recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. In less than a breath's time, the two sword scars had disappeared without a trace. The expressions of everyone in the surroundings had become solemn when they witnessed this scene. Yi Xian was also a little shocked. Was the undying bloodline so terrifying? Nian Nian and the white-robed Qing'er's swords couldn't kill her? Was it true that only 3 strikes could kill her in 1 strike? The white-robed woman looked at the mysterious woman without saying anything. No one knew what she was thinking. Mu Niannian suddenly said, "Her bloodline is a little strange." The white-robed woman was expressionless. Undying bloodline. As she spoke, she looked at Yi Xian, the activated mad demon bloodline. "I'm going to use my bloodline to suppress hers." Yi Xian shook his head. "I can't sense the mad demon bloodline anymore." The white-robed woman was slightly puzzled. Why? Yi Xian looked at the mysterious woman in the distance. It was sealed by her. When he spoke up to this point, he was slightly angry. This woman had planned this from the very beginning when she first found him. The white-robed woman appeared by Yi Xian's side, and she placed her right hand on Yi Xian's shoulder. After a short moment, she frowned. Mu Niannian asked, "Can it be undone?" The white-robed woman shook her head. "You can't force it. Otherwise, the two bloodlines will clash and he will die." As she spoke, she turned to look at the mysterious woman in the distance. "Sealing his bloodline will make it have one less natural enemy. Moreover, it will make it so that the man can't sense his condition." What a good plan. The mysterious woman smiled. "Too, after so many years, you still have such a bad temper." The white-robed woman did not speak any nonsense. She suddenly disappeared. In the distance, the mysterious woman stood in the same place. She did not dodge. In the blink of an eye, the white-robed woman appeared several dozen feet behind her. There was a blood-red sword hole between the mysterious woman's eyebrows. But in the blink of an eye, that blood-red sword hole disappeared. It was directly restored. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian's face sank. This woman could not be killed. The mysterious woman suddenly disappeared. In the distance, the white-robed woman suddenly turned around and slashed down with her sword. Bang! Along with the sound of an explosion, a fiery light suddenly erupted in front of the white-robed woman. The white-robed woman retreated several dozen feet. She had just stopped when the space in front of her suddenly split open, and a fist mark came straight at her. The white-robed woman stabbed out with her sword. Bang! The fist mark directly shattered. The white-robed woman retreated several dozen feet. She had just stopped when a flaming fist mark suddenly fell straight down from the top of her head. The white-robed woman's mouth curled into a sinister smile. She held her sword and suddenly soared into the sky. OM. A sword howl reverberated through the starry sky. A strand of dazzling flame and sword energy suddenly exploded in the starry sky, and then powerful sword energy and flames instantly swept through the starry sky. At this moment, the entire starry sky seethed and gradually became illusory. Moon Yin suddenly vanished on the spot, and then a strand of sword energy tore through the sky. At this moment, she would naturally not allow the white-robed woman to have a fair battle with the mysterious woman. After all, this wasn't a spar. At the instant that Moon Yin attacked, the door of misfortune suddenly shook violently. In the next moment, a blood-red bolt of divine lightning shot explosively towards Moon Yin. Moon Yin's eyes narrowed slightly, and then she followed up with a slash with her sword. Hiss! The starry sky was torn apart, and then a ray of sword energy struck the blood-red bolt of divine lightning. Bang! The ray of sword energy shattered, and Moon Yin instantly retreated 3 kilometers. However, the blood-red bolt of divine lightning didn't vanish, and it shot straight towards Moon Yin. Wherever the blood-red divine lightning passed, space was directly erased. It was obliterated. Everyone in the surroundings was visibly moved when they witnessed this scene. After all, how formidable was the force required to obliterate an expanse of space? Moon Yin slowly closed her eyes. When the blood-red bolt of divine lightning arrived in front of her, she suddenly opened her eyes, and then the sword in her hand trembled violently. She took a step forward and slashed with her sword. As soon as her sword descended, an expanse of sword energy slashed directly against the blood-red bolt of divine lightning. Bang! The ray of sword energy forcefully stopped the blood-red bolt of divine lightning on the spot. However, it didn't shatter into pieces. Conversely, the ray of sword energy grew more and more illusory. Moon Yin slashed once more, and a ray of sword energy slashed against the blood-red bolt of divine lightning. However, it still didn't vanish. Conversely, her ray of sword energy was instantly devoured. After it devoured Moon Yin's ray of sword energy, the bolt of divine lightning suddenly transformed into countless bolts of lightning that shot towards Moon Yin. Moon Yin's brows knit together slightly. She was just about to attack when over a dozen blood-red threads appeared around her. As soon as these blood-red threads appeared, the vitality within her body instantly vanished at a visible speed. Even her sword energy couldn't resist it. Meanwhile, Yi Xian appeared in front of Moon Yin, and a ferocious expression flashed through his eyes before he slashed with his sword. Rumble. The ray of sword energy was instantly obliterated. At the same time, Yi Xian was blasted over 10 kilometers away, and his body had even become pitch black. He'd been charred by the lightning. His immortal stage Taoist body was as fragile as a piece of paper under the blood-red divine thunder. If it weren't for his immortal bloodline, his body would have been completely annihilated even if his divine soul didn't perish. However, the blood-red divine lightning still hadn't vanished, and it had arrived in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian's pupils constricted, and he was just about to attack again when Moon Yin appeared in front of him. Moon Yin took her sword with both hands and slashed it forward. Bang! An expansive ray of sword energy instantly enveloped the blood-red divine lightning, and it was instantly forced to stop. However, it didn't vanish. Conversely, Moon Yin's ray of sword energy was being devoured bit by bit. At this moment, the space around Moon Yin had become pitch black. It was death energy. It was an unusual form of death energy. Because there were threads of blood-red threads within the death energy. The death energy was gradually corroding Moon Yin's body. It wasn't just Moon Yin, lady who was fighting Shu Wubian in the distance was surrounded by the death energy as well. Besides that, the entire starry sky was filled with all sorts of muddy energy. As for the layer of clouds in the sky above the door of misfortune, they had turned blood red, and lightning flickered within them. Yi Xian gazed at the white-robed woman and the mysterious woman. They were still locked in battle, but the white-robed woman wasn't gaining any advantage. Because the mysterious woman really couldn't be killed. Even if the white-robed woman slit her throat with her sword, she still wouldn't die. Presently, both of them could be said to be on par. But if this continued, the mysterious woman would definitely gain the upper hand. Because karmic calamity threads had appeared around the white-robed woman as well, and there were over 100 of them. Yi Xian suddenly said, Qing, The white-robed woman suddenly stopped, and then she turned around to gaze at Yi Xian. I'm here. Yi Xian shook his head and walked over to the white-robed woman. When he saw the karmic calamity threads coiling around her, he felt an indescribable pain in his heart. I'm sorry. The white-robed woman looked straight at Yi Xian. I'm here, nothing will happen. Not unless I die. Yi Xian was about to speak, but at this moment, countless blood-red bolts of divine lightning suddenly appeared in the sky above the door of misfortune. The mysterious woman suddenly said, Yi Xian, if you don't go in, the divine lightning will destroy the entire fifth dimension. Whether it's my Qing, or Mu Niannian, they won't be able to resist it. Not only them, but everyone related to them will die. As she spoke, she glanced at the door of misfortune, and a rare trace of seriousness flashed through her eyes. In fact, the might of the door of misfortune had exceeded her expectations. She couldn't control the door of misfortune at this moment. Because even she couldn't resist the tribulation of misfortune. The white-robed woman looked at the mysterious woman and was about to attack again. The mysterious woman smiled, too, you can't kill me. If you continue fighting, you'll definitely die. Moreover, haven't you noticed? The more you attack, the stronger the door of misfortune becomes. The white-robed woman looked at the door of misfortune. At this moment, the door of misfortune was emanating an extremely terrifying pressure, and this pressure caused even her heart to palpitate. The door of misfortune was growing stronger and stronger. The white-robed woman slowly closed her eyes. Her right hand tightly clenched the sword in her hand, and the sword trembled as it accumulated power. After a short while, the white-robed woman raised her head and looked towards the depths of the starry sky. She knew that only that woman could resist the door of misfortune. But what about that woman? Wasn't she resisting the cause of misfortune? At this moment, the door of misfortune suddenly trembled violently. In the next moment, the blood-red divine lightning above it became violent, and the entire fifth dimension started to be destroyed inch by inch. The expressions of everyone present changed when they witnessed this scene. Even the mysterious woman's eyes were filled with a solemn expression. She sensed danger. Actually, she was extremely shocked right now. She knew that she'd severely underestimated the cause of misfortune until now. At this moment, she finally understood why the woman in a plain dress had resisted the cause of misfortune for Yi Xian. If the woman in a plain dress hadn't been standing in front of him, then Yi Xian wouldn't have been able to survive even if he had 100 lives. Right at this moment, the blood-red divine lightning above the door of misfortune suddenly spread outwards, and it was about to leave the layer of clouds. Once it left the layer of clouds, then not only would the fifth dimension be instantly destroyed, even Mu Niannian and Tu might not be able to survive. The mysterious woman was retreating in the distance. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly gazed at the mysterious woman and smiled, since you want me dead so badly, then I'll fulfill your wish. As soon as he finished speaking, he transformed into a ray of light that shot into the door of misfortune. The expressions of Tu and Mu Niannian instantly changed drastically when they witnessed this scene. They wanted to stop him, but it was too late. Because Yi Xian was truly too close to the door of misfortune. Just as the two ladies were about to stop him, Yi Xian had already entered the door of adversity. The moment he entered the door of adversity, a beam of golden light suddenly shone from the starry sky. Holy shit, young master, don't be rash. As soon as the voice resounded, a ray of golden light followed Yi Xian into the door of misfortune. A horrified voice suddenly resounded from within the door of misfortune. Fuck. Let me out. The entire door of misfortune trembled violently, and then the karmic threads of misfortune in the surroundings suddenly surged back into the door of misfortune like tidewater. Besides that, the blood-red divine lightning instantly surged into the door of misfortune as well. The white-robed woman and Mu Niannian didn't even hesitate to charge into the door of misfortune. At this moment, they felt as if they'd been struck by lightning. Right when they approached the door of misfortune, it suddenly closed, and then it transformed into a blood-red screen of light that vanished into the starry sky. The white-robed woman's pupils constricted, and she swiftly clawed forward. Come back. As soon as her voice resounded, an enormous hand suddenly pierced through the starry sky and appeared in the deepest depths of the starry sky. However, the enormous hand had just appeared when it was instantly shattered by a ray of blood-red light. Moreover, the door of misfortune had vanished completely. The white-robed woman's face instantly turned pale when she witnessed this scene. Mu Nianyan's face was pale as a sheet as well. Meanwhile, two women suddenly walked over from afar. One of them was Enlancio. At this moment, Enlancio seemed as if she'd lost her soul as she walked slowly. There was another woman standing by Enlancio's side. She wore a white dress and wore a veil over her face. The mysterious woman glanced at the veiled woman who just appeared and smiled. "Miss Ding. We're too late. Yi Xian will definitely die, and Tian Ming will definitely not choose to live alone. All of them will die. We'll all die together." As she spoke, she took a deep breath and seemed extremely pleased. Miss Ding gazed at the mysterious woman. "I did all of this for the sake of avenging my son." The mysterious woman smiled. "Then shouldn't I be avenging him?" Miss Ding looked the mysterious woman in the eyes. "He's my son." The mysterious woman was slightly stunned, and then she roared with laughter. "Miss Ding, that joke isn't funny at all." Miss Ding just gazed at the mysterious woman. "Have you ever seen me joke?" The mysterious woman stared fixedly at Miss Ding. "My son was born at the same time as him, and then the cause of misfortune descended. After that, my dear older sister seized the opportunity while I was unconscious to use my son as a vessel for the misfortune. After that, my son wasn't able to endure the cause of misfortune, and his soul was destroyed. On the other hand, Tian Ming rushed over to protect her son." Miss Ding suddenly said, "Tian Ming is protecting her son. Do you know why she's been able to survive for so long? Because Tian Ming is giving face to her son. Otherwise, does she really think she can scheme against her? While she's playing with her wits, we're still playing with mud. It was only because she was his biological mother that she didn't behead him. Do you understand?" The mysterious woman seemed as if she'd been struck by lightning, and she retreated a few meters. She stared fixedly at Miss Ding while her entire body trembled. "No. Impossible. No. Ah. Impossible." Chapter 1505. Impossible? Miss Ding looked at the mysterious woman with a calm expression. "Do you think there's any point in me lying to you?" The mysterious woman looked at Miss Ding with a ferocious expression and scarlet eyes. "If he really was my son, why didn't you tell me earlier?" "Why?" Miss Ding looked at the mysterious woman. "Did you give me a chance?" As if she thought of something, the mysterious woman's face instantly turned pale. Miss Ding said, "Back then, when the calamity descended, Tian Ming blocked it. In order to protect him, I had no choice but to bring him to his father with your sister. But I didn't expect that Tian Ming didn't tell you the truth." Saying that, she shook her head. "But that's normal. At that time, she disliked everyone, so why would she tell you this?" The mysterious woman slowly closed her eyes, her whole body trembling. "I asked her, and she said that my son's life or death has nothing to do with her." Miss Ding shook her head and sighed. If Tian Ming had explained back then, this wouldn't have happened. Actually, Tian Ming's temper was many times better than before. In the past, Tian Ming looked at everyone as if they were dead. "Explain?" "It was already good enough that she didn't stab you. You still want her to explain to you? You're thinking too much." In this woman's eyes, there was no one else but her brother. Now, because of Yi Xian, Tian Ming's temper was much better, at least like a normal person. Miss Ding collected her thoughts and looked at the mysterious woman. "I looked for you, but I couldn't find you. I didn't expect you to hide in the dark and make things so big." The mysterious woman suddenly said with a trembling voice, "Since Tian Ming knew I was taking revenge on him, why didn't she stop me?" "Why?" No, she wanted to use me to draw out the cause of misfortune." Miss Ding nodded. "The cause of misfortune has always been hidden, so she had no way to attack. But because of you, the cause of misfortune has begun to appear, which is exactly what she wanted." But she never expected that the cause of misfortune would activate the gate of misfortune to kill him. This matter is beyond the capabilities of the few of us. At this moment, the white-robed woman pointed her sword at the mysterious woman. Where is the gate of misfortune? The mysterious woman raised her head and looked into the depths of the starry sky. After a long time, a trace of confusion flashed through her eyes. I can't feel it anymore. The white-robed woman's mouth curled into a savage smile. I'll kill you. As soon as she finished speaking, she was about to attack, but she was stopped by Miss Ding. Miss Ding looked at Tuesday. Miss Tu, the only one who can find the door of disaster now is her. The white-robed woman gripped her sword tightly with her right hand, her expression becoming more and more ferocious. Miss Ding looked at the mysterious woman. We must find the door of disaster as soon as possible, or else. The mysterious woman shook her head. I can no longer sense the door of disaster. Miss Ding looked at the mysterious woman. Think of a way. The mysterious woman was silent for a long time. We can't look for the door of disaster. We have to look for him. Sense him. Hurry up. Miss Ding asked, what do you have in mind? The mysterious woman spoke in a low voice. When I sealed his crazed devil bloodline earlier, I left my power in his body. As she spoke, her body suddenly soared into the sky. She looked into the depths of the starry sky and spread out her hands. Flames suddenly burned around her. Just like that, after a quarter of an hour, the mysterious woman's pupils suddenly shrank as if she had sensed something. Seeing this scene, Miss Ding and the others' expressions instantly sank. Two stared at the mysterious woman. Speak. The mysterious woman looked into the depths of the starry sky and said with a trembling voice, his life is flowing away at an extremely fast speed. Miss Ding said in a low voice, do you know the location of the door of disaster? The mysterious woman said, I can only sense a rough direction. Moreover, the door of disaster seems to have brought him to an unknown world. Miss Ding suddenly said, you, Miss Nian Nian, and Tu chase in that direction. You must catch him. Don't let it bring him too far away, and don't lose him. I will go find his father. As she finished speaking, she turned around and left. Tu stared at the mysterious woman. Her gaze was like a sword, and she wanted to kill. Nian Nian suddenly said, let's go. The mysterious woman turned around and looked at Shu Wubian, who was not far away. Shu Wubian looked at the mysterious woman, but did not speak. This was awkward. That Yi Xian was actually this woman's son. The mysterious woman looked at Shu Wubian. Don't touch the fifth dimension. Shu Wubian said in a low voice, okay. The mysterious woman glanced at Night Deity and the others. You all guard the fifth dimension and wait for my son to return. As she finished speaking, she turned into a flame and disappeared into the ends of the starry sky. Night Deity and the others looked at each other. Mu Nian and Tu also disappeared into the ends of the starry sky. The three women raised their speed to the limit and tore through the starry sky. The mysterious woman in the lead looked at the endless starry sky with bloodshot eyes. Wait for me. You must wait for me. As the mysterious woman and the others left, the scene suddenly became quiet. After a moment of silence, Night Deity turned around and left. Only now did he understand why the mysterious woman had asked him to keep a low profile. The number of experts in this era was not just an ordinary amount. He really had to keep a low profile. He felt that he had to properly develop himself. Otherwise, his survival would be in danger. Not far away, Princess did not choose to leave. Before Miss Ding left, she had asked her to guard the fifth dimension. Currently, Yi Xian and Mu Nian were not in the fifth dimension, so there needed to be a super expert guarding it. Princess looked at the depths of the starry sky with a trace of worry in her eyes. The door of adversity was so terrifying. Could he resist it? If Yi Xian really died in the door of adversity, then the matter would be really serious. With that woman's temper, no one could survive. Somewhere in the starry sky, Miss Ding was shuttling through the starry sky. Beside her was Lanxiu. Miss Ding's expression was also solemn. The might of the door of adversity had greatly exceeded her expectations. It could be said that at present, apart from those three people, basically no one could resist the door of adversity. With Yi Xian's current strength, could he survive if he entered it? If Yi Xian died, what would happen to Tian Ming? What would happen to the green-robed man? Sigh. Miss Ding sighed softly. When she found out that something was about to happen to Yi Xian, she'd put down everything she was doing and rushed over. But she hadn't expected that she would still be too late. Meanwhile, Lanxiu spoke softly, "He'll be fine, right?" Miss Ding looked towards the depths of the starry sky. "I hope he's fine." Lanxiu's face instantly turned pale when she heard this. After an unknown amount of time, Yi Xian opened his eyes slowly. His expression changed the moment he opened his eyes. At this moment, he was in a blood-red world. Above him was an expanse of blood-red clouds, and boundless lightning flickered within the clouds. Yi Xian's expression became solemn when he saw this. The door of adversity. He knew that he was within the door of adversity right now. Meanwhile, a voice suddenly resounded by Yi Xian's side. "Young master, we're finished." Yi Xian was shocked when he heard this, and he turned around to look. Xiao Ta was hopping around nearby, and he seemed to be very anxious. Yi Xian blinked. "Why did you come in?" Xiao Ta immediately jumped in front of Yi Xian. "I didn't want to come in either. I was sucked in by it." Yi Xian was speechless. Xiao Ta suddenly said, "Young master, what do we do now?" Yi Xian looked up at the sky. The blood-red lightning was growing more and more violent, and its might was growing stronger and stronger. With his current strength, he wouldn't even be able to withstand a single bolt of blood-colored lightning, let alone so many. Meanwhile, Xiao Ta said, "Young master, I think we have to think of a way to escape." Yi Xian looked at Xiao Ta. "Can you contact your master?" Xiao Ta shook his head. "No, I can't. Everything is blocked here, and my master is very, very far away from here. Even if he's outside, I can't contact him." He couldn't contact the man in green. Yi Xian said softly, "It seems that we can only rely on ourselves." Xiao Ta was a little excited. "Young master, do you have any ideas?" Yi Xian looked around. He couldn't see the end of it, and he could confirm that they were in an unknown world. As if he had thought of something, Yi Xian suddenly frowned. He looked up at the sky. Why didn't the blood-red lightning attack him? This wasn't normal. Suddenly, the clouds above his head suddenly turned into a strange black vortex. As the black vortex formed, all the blood-red lightning in the sky instantly gathered towards the black vortex. Yi Xian's frown deepened when he witnessed this scene, and there was a trace of bewilderment in his eyes. "What's it trying to do?" Xiao Ta said, "Young master, I think it might be about to unleash an ultimate technique." As soon as he finished speaking, an enormous pillar of lightning suddenly emerged from within the vortex. The pillar of lightning was almost 3 kilometers long and over 1 kilometer wide. Along with the appearance of the pillar of lightning, an indescribably formidable pressure instantly swept down from the sky, and the entire heavens and the earth warped at this moment. Xiao Ta was slightly excited when he witnessed this scene. "Young master, look. I wasn't wrong. It really is about to unleash an ultimate technique." Yi Xian's face darkened. "You guessed right." As he spoke, he grabbed Xiao Ta, and then he transformed into a ray of light that vanished into the distance. At the instant he vanished, the blood-red pillar of lightning above him suddenly pierced through the starry sky. When it appeared once more, it was already over 500 kilometers away above Yi Xian. At the same time, a strand of formidable pressure directly sealed off the surroundings around Yi Xian. Yi Xian stopped moving when he witnessed this scene. He knew that he couldn't escape. He could only resist it head-on. Yi Xian raised his head to look at the blood-red pillar of lightning. He knew that not to mention his current strength, even if his strength increased by 10 times, it would still be impossible for him to resist this divine lightning. Yi Xian took a deep breath, and then he turned around to look at Xiao Ta and smiled. "Stay away from me. This thing is only targeting me. Understand?" As he spoke, he suddenly clenched his fists tightly. In an instant, a strand of flames appeared around him. He was burning his lifespan. Since he had no way out, then he had to fight to the death. Yi Xian held his sword in hand as he gazed at the descending enormous pillar of lightning, and he grinned. "Isn't it just death? Come on." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly soared into the sky. However, before he could even get close to the pillar of lightning, his body began to crack bit by bit. Although he had the immortal bloodline, the recovery speed of the immortal bloodline couldn't keep up with the speed of his body's destruction. When Yi Xian arrived at a place 10 zhang away from the pillar of lightning, he held his sword with both hands and slashed upwards. A ray of sword light pierced through the sky. The moment he swung his sword, Yi Xian felt as if his entire body had been sucked dry. He slowly fell from the sky. At this moment, he only had less than half a year of lifespan left, and he had used up all his strength to swing this sword. This was the most powerful sword he had ever used. In the sky, Yi Xian slowly fell. He looked at the horizon as his sword light slashed the blood-red pillar of lightning. Boom! The blood-red pillar of lightning shook violently, and his sword light was instantly drowned by the lightning. The blood-red pillar of lightning plunged straight down. Seeing this, Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. He had tried his best. He had really tried his best. Not to mention him, even Nian Nian might not be able to resist this thing. Right at this moment, Xiao Ta, who was beside Yi Xian, suddenly transformed into a ray of golden light and soared into the sky. Xiao Ta directly collided with the blood-red pillar of lightning. Boom! A ray of lightning and a blood-red light exploded between heaven and earth. The lightning pillar was actually forced to stop. However, soon, the lightning pillar erupted with a dazzling ray of lightning, and Xiao Ta was directly pressed down to the ground. At this moment, Xiao Ta's voice resounded in the sky. "Young lord, hurry up and run. I can't hold on for much longer." "Run?" A trace of confusion flashed in Yi Xian's eyes. How could he run? They were in this world now, and it was useless to run anywhere. Thinking of this, Yi Xian's lips curled into a ferocious smile. He slammed his right hand on the ground, and his entire body soared into the sky, once again slashing at the blood-red pillar of lightning. However, in an instant, Yi Xian directly fell from the sky, and finally crashed into the ground. As for the golden light around Xiao Ta, it was slowly being devoured. Xiao Ta wailed, "Master! Save me! I can't hold on any longer." Below, Yi Xian wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and once again soared into the sky. In the outside world, the door of woe disaster carried a ray of lightning as it continuously pierced through the starry sky. Its speed was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, it passed through countless galaxies. No one knew its destination. At this moment, the door of woe disaster suddenly appeared in the starry sky. As soon as it appeared, a blood-red ray of lightning swept across the starry sky. Wherever the blood-red ray of lightning passed, the space was directly wiped out. In the next moment, it directly disappeared into the deepest part of the starry sky. In some unknown star region, a swordsman in a cloud-white robe was slowly walking in the starry sky. Swordsman looked into the depths of the starry sky and shook his head. In the vast universe, there isn't even a single strong person. How boring. At this moment, the space behind him suddenly split open, and the next moment, a blood door flew out. The door of woe disaster. After the door of woe disaster appeared, a blood-red ray of lightning appeared in the starry sky. Its speed did not decrease, and it headed straight for Swordsman in the distance. It was not looking for Swordsman, but was just passing by. However, this swordsman just happened to be blocking its path. Seeing the door of woe disaster shooting towards him with a blood-red ray of lightning, a trace of confusion flashed in Swordsman's eyes. What is the meaning of this? P.S. I recommend a book from my hometown, Heaven's Dome. It's a cultivation book, and if you like cultivation books, you can go read it. It already has more than 1 million words, and you can help me collect it. Finally, I ask for tickets. Although I didn't explode, I still ask for tickets. That's right, my skin is so thick. Chapter 1506. Not only did the door of woe disaster not slow down, it even sped up. Behind it, the starry sky was destroyed. Everything was destroyed wherever the blood-red lightning passed. Looking at the unfriendly blood door, the swordsman frowned. He suddenly flicked his left thumb and the scabbard in his hand shook violently. A ray of sword light flew out and slashed at the blood door. Boom! The blood-red lightning around the blood door turned into nothingness, and the blood door was slashed tens of thousands of feet away. As soon as it stopped, its entire body cracked, but it did not completely shatter. The door of woe disaster trembled. It was a little confused. What had it encountered? Without hesitation, it turned to run. However, at that moment, the swordsman appeared in front of it. The swordsman looked at the door of woe disaster and a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. There's a familiar aura. As he said that, he turned into a ray of sword light and charged at the door of woe disaster. The door of woe disaster shook violently and a ray of lightning shot out. However, before the lightning could touch the ray of sword light, it turned into nothingness. The door of woe disaster. Inside the door of woe disaster, Yi Xian crashed to the ground again. Not only him, but Xiao Ta also crashed to the ground beside him. One man and one tower, they had tried their best. Although Xiao Ta was tough, he had not fused with Yi Xian. Therefore, Yi Xian could not fully unleash his true power, and it was too late for him to fuse with him now. Xiao Ta lay beside Yi Xian and said in a trembling voice, "Young master, I don't want to die. Why don't we surrender?" Yi Xian's face darkened. Surrender? Was this something that could be solved by surrendering? Just as the lightning pillar was about to fall, the space in the distance was suddenly torn apart. The next moment, a swordsman in a white robe walked in. Following the appearance of the swordsman, the blood-colored lightning pillar suddenly stopped and shot directly towards the swordsman. At the same time, countless blood-colored lightning bolts appeared in the sky and converged towards the swordsman like red snakes. At this moment, Yi Xian also realized that something was wrong. He opened his eyes and turned to look. Not far away, the swordsman slowly approached. He wore a cloud-white robe and held a sheathed sword in his hand. Yi Xian was stunned when he saw the swordsman. One of the sword masters at the top of the tower. Why would he appear here? From afar, swordsman looked at the lightning pillar and shook his head. Too weak. As soon as he finished speaking, he gently flicked his left thumb. Buzz! Inside the sheath, a sword pierced through the air. Under Yi Xian's astonished gaze, the lightning pillar was directly cut in half by the sword. Following that, the huge lightning pillar was directly erased, along with all the blood-colored lightning bolts in the world. With one sword, all tribulations would cease to exist. Not only that, but the entire world had begun to turn illusory. Yi Xian was dumbfounded. Was this guy really that strong? From afar, swordsman shook his head again, a trace of disappointment flashed in his eyes. This is the calamity of disaster? It's too weak, so boring. Yi Xian was speechless. At this time, countless blood-red silk threads suddenly appeared around swordsman. However, these blood-red silk threads could not get close to him at all. A trace of surprise flashed in swordsman's eyes. Calamity Karma thread. At this time, Yi Xian suddenly said, "Senior?" Swordsman looked at Yi Xian and smiled. "Are you all right?" Yi Xian nodded. "Why are you here, senior?" Swordsman smiled. "By chance." Yi Xian blinked. "By chance?" Swordsman nodded. "When this door was traversing through space, it almost hit me." So, I came in to have a look, but I didn't expect to meet you. Looks like this is really God's will. Yi Xian was petrified on the spot. If this swordsman was not lying, then this calamity door was too unlucky. Swordsman suddenly looked at Xiao Ta, who was standing next to Yi Xian. A trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. This tower, Lilith Pagoda, instantly flew in front of the sword cultivator. It jumped up and down excitedly. It was obvious that it recognized the sword cultivator. Swordsman smiled and asked, "Where's your master?" Xiao Ta said, "Master is in a very, very far away place. I can't sense him anymore." Swordsman nodded slightly. "I see." Saying so, he looked at Yi Xian. "How did you end up like this?" "As far as I know, isn't that woman helping you resist the calamity karma?" Yi Xian smiled bitterly. "It's a long story." Swordsman nodded. He looked around. At this moment, the world around him was becoming more and more illusory. Swordsman smiled and said, "Let's go out." Saying so, he directly disappeared with Yi Xian. When the two of them reappeared, they were already in a starry sky. And in front of the two of them, the gate of woe was about to escape. Swordsman suddenly pointed with his fingers. A ray of sword light directly enveloped the gate of woe. He was about to attack again when Yi Xian suddenly said, "Senior, please wait." Swordsman looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian looked at the gate of woe. "Senior, can you give this gate to me?" Swordsman smiled and said, "This gate can withstand my sword without breaking. It's definitely not an ordinary item." "Are you sure you want it?" Yi Xian thought for a moment and then said, "How about this? Senior can help me suppress it, that is, make it unable to use the divine lightning." Swordsman glanced at the gate of woe. "Sure." Saying so, he pointed with his fingers. 2 rays of sword light directly entered the gate of woe. These 2 rays of sword light directly suppressed the gate of woe. Swordsman looked at Yi Xian and said with a smile, "It's done." Yi Xian walked in front of the gate of woe. The gate of woe trembled slightly, and Yi Xian directly stored the gate of woe into the prison pagoda within his body. If it was just the prison pagoda alone, it naturally wouldn't be able to suppress the gate of woe. However, with the presence of Swordsman's sword light, it was different. The gate of woe was very obedient within the prison pagoda. At this time, Swordsman suddenly said, "Heal your injuries first." Yi Xian nodded. He sat cross-legged on the ground. The undying blood around his body was rapidly repairing his body. Very quickly, in less than half an hour, his body had recovered to its original state. Needless to say, Yi Xian was a little shocked. The recovery ability of the undying blood was a little too abnormal. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian suddenly looked at Swordsman. "Senior, someone left a seal in my body, sealing my original mad demon blood. Can you help me remove it?" Swordsman sized up Yi Xian. He slightly nodded, "Yes." However, once the seal is removed, the 2 types of blood will coexist in your body. Can you suppress it? Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "I'll try. If I can't, then I'll need Senior's help." Swordsman smiled, "Sure." Saying so, he pointed with his fingers. An array of sword light directly entered Yi Xian's body. Boom! Inside Yi Xian's body, something seemed to disappear. In an instant, a powerful force of blood surged out from Yi Xian's body. Mad demon blood. At this moment, the blood in Yi Xian's body was boiling. Bloodline power. When the mad demon blood appeared, Yi Xian's whole body directly turned into a blood man. Yi Xian's face suddenly changed. He felt the anger of the mad demon blood. At this moment, the mad demon blood was extremely angry. It had been sealed for so long, how could it not be angry? Yi Xian found that the mad demon blood was directly draining his undying blood's force. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian's face suddenly changed. If they fought, wouldn't he be played to death? He quickly began to suppress the mad demon bloodline, but it was useless. The more he tried to suppress it, the crazier the mad demon bloodline became. Most importantly, the undying bloodline was not a peaceful master. Although it was being suppressed by the mad demon bloodline, it was not afraid. As soon as the two bloodlines started fighting, Yi Xian's whole body directly twisted, especially the blood vessels in his body. It was as if they were about to explode. It was extremely terrifying. At this time, the swordsman was about to make a move, but Yi Xian suddenly said fiercely, "You want to play? I'll play with you. Everyone, let's play together." As he said that, he directly burned his flesh. Boom! A flame directly wrapped his body. Under the wrapping of this flame, the vitality in Yi Xian's body began to fade. At this time, the two bloodlines in his body suddenly stopped. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian also breathed a sigh of relief. He knew that if he did not teach these two bloodline powers a lesson, these two bloodlines would definitely ride on his head in the future. Seeing that the two bloodlines stopped, Yi Xian waved his right hand. The flame on his body directly disappeared. The swordsman smiled and said, "Indeed, we can't spoil them." Yi Xian smiled and then looked at the swordsman. "Senior, where is this place?" The swordsman looked around and then shook his head. "I don't know." Yi Xian blinked. "I don't know?" The swordsman smiled and said, "I really don't know." Yi Xian asked again, "Then where are you going?" The swordsman shook his head. "I don't know either." Yi Xian was a little puzzled. The swordsman smiled and looked into the depths of the starry sky. "I'm looking for powerful people. Of course, other than people, other powerful creatures will also do." Yi Xian was a little curious. "Why are you looking for them?" The swordsman smiled and said, "I want to be defeated." Yi Xian was speechless. To be defeated. Yi Xian sized up the swordsman and then said, "Senior, what level have you reached?" The swordsman shook his head. "I don't know." Yi Xian was speechless. The swordsman looked into the depths of the starry sky with a trace of loneliness in his eyes. "I also want to know what level I've reached. Unfortunately, I don't have an opponent." As he said that, he patted Yi Xian's shoulder lightly and sighed. "Actually, I'm very envious of you." Yi Xian was a little puzzled. "Envious of me for what?" The swordsman smiled and said, "Envious that you can be defeated. As for me, I've been seeking defeat for hundreds of thousands of years. The days of being invincible are too painful." Yi Xian suddenly coughed. He felt a little suffocated and did not want to continue the conversation. At this time, the swordsman said again, "I originally thought it was a little boring, but now I have a goal." Yi Xian was a little curious. "What goal?" The swordsman looked into the depths of the starry sky and said excitedly, "The cause of disaster. I also want to see this cause of disaster for myself." Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Senior, can you sense the cause of disaster?" The swordsman shook his head. "I can't sense it. The path of karma is a bit mysterious, and your cause of disaster is not only mysterious, but also complicated. No wonder the two of them wanted to find the source of this cause of disaster. It's really not simple." Yi Xian glanced at the swordsman. "Senior, between you and who's stronger?" The swordsman asked, "Are you talking about the woman in the plain dress?" Yi Xian nodded. "Yes." The swordsman smiled slightly and did not say anything. Chapter 1507. Yi Xian had always been curious about the strength of the master of the three swords at the top of the pagoda. Who was stronger? Swordsman chuckled, "I can't kill her, but she can't kill me either." Hearing this, Yi Xian understood. Swordsman continued, "She is a very good opponent, but she is very busy. Therefore, I have an agreement with her. After she finishes dealing with her matters, we will fight again. But from the current situation, I'm afraid it will take a long time because the cause of disaster on your body is very complicated." Yi Xian looked at his body. Around him, there were still countless karmic lines of disaster. These karmic lines of disaster did not corrode his body, and there was no death aura either. He did not know why. However, according to his guess, it might be because of the disaster constitution. Swordsman suddenly asked, "What are your plans?" Yi Xian looked around. "Senior, is this place far from the fifth dimension?" Swordsman shook his head. "I don't know." Yi Xian looked around. This was a completely unknown starry sky. He had no idea where he was. He wanted to contact someone in the fifth dimension, but he could not. It was too far. Voice transmission talisman could not transmit over such a long distance. At this time, Swordsman suddenly said, "I want to go to a place in front. Do you want to come with me?" Yi Xian looked into the distance. "Where is it?" Swordsman smiled. "I don't know." Yi Xian was speechless. This guy did not know where he was going. Swordsman asked again, "Are you going?" Yi Xian nodded. "Yes." Swordsman smiled. "Let's go." Swordsman walked into the distance. Yi Xian hurriedly followed. On the way, Yi Xian glanced at Swordsman. "Senior, why don't we use sword kinesis flight?" Swordsman chuckled. "Calm your heart and think." Yi Xian was a little puzzled. "Calm down and think?" Swordsman nodded. "Your heart is rather impetuous and needs to settle down. A swordsman's heart should be as tranquil as water, without the slightest ripple." Yi Xian said nothing. Impetuous. He knew that his heart had always been restless. Swordsman continued, "To cultivate the sword is to cultivate the mind. With a calm mind, you can make your sword faster and sharper." Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Senior, you shattered the lightning pillar with a single sword strike earlier, but I think that sword strike was very ordinary." Swordsman smiled faintly. "That sword seemed ordinary, but it has nearly 200,000 years of accumulation." Yi Xian suddenly unsheathed his sword and slashed. A wisp of sword light tore through the air, tearing apart the space 1,000 feet away. Instant kill sword. It was an extremely fast sword strike. Yi Xian turned to look at Swordsman. "Senior, please give me some pointers." Swordsman said nothing. Yi Xian smiled. "Senior, please go ahead." Swordsman shook his head. "That sword strike is too trashy." Yi Xian, Swordsman continued, "This sword technique is actually quite good. I can see that the person who created this sword technique was very thoughtful. However, your sword cultivation is too weak. Moreover, your swords are extremely complicated." Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Please give me some pointers, senior." Swordsman said, "The reason why your sword strike was so fast earlier was 50% due to your physique. You can try to use this sword strike without your physique." Yi Xian thought for a moment and slashed out. Instant kill sword. 1,000 feet away, the space was pierced by a wisp of sword light. And the speed of this sword strike was much, much slower than before. Yi Xian's expression sank. This time, he did not use his physique strength. Swordsman said, "Your sword is not pure enough." Of course, this doesn't mean that you can't cultivate your physique and soul. The stronger your physique and soul are, the more beneficial it is for your sword cultivation. However, you're putting the cart before the horse. Because your physique is stronger than your sword. Moreover, there's also the power of your bloodline. Your swordsmanship itself is not strong, but with the power of your bloodline and your physique, your battle prowess is not bad. Saying that, he glanced at Yi Xian. "The path you've taken is a bit off." Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Then how should I correct it?" Swordsman smiled. "Do you want to be a swordsman or a physique cultivator?" Yi Xian did not hesitate. "Swordsman." Swordsman nodded. "That's easy. I'll seal your physique in the power of your bloodline. Are you willing?" Yi Xian was a little hesitant. Without his physique and the power of his bloodline, his battle prowess would be reduced by at least 50%. Especially the combination of a godly state physique and the immortal bloodline, this was too abnormal. The reason he could last so long in the door of wretched disaster was because of his powerful godly state physique and the immortal bloodline. If he gave up on this physique and the immortal bloodline, not only would his battle prowess be reduced by 50%, but his ability to survive would also be gone. Swordsman did not speak again. The choice was up to Yi Xian. After a while, Yi Xian suddenly looked at Swordsman. Then let's seal it. Swordsman smiled. Have you thought about it? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Swordsman nodded. Good. Saying that, he pointed his finger and a ray of sword light directly entered Yi Xian's body. Boom. In the blink of an eye, Yi Xian's mad demon bloodline and immortal bloodline were directly suppressed by Swordsman's sword chi. Even Yi Xian could not awaken these two bloodlines. Swordsman looked at Yi Xian. I can't seal your physique because you've already cultivated it. I can only break your physique and then reconstruct it for you. Are you willing? Yi Xian was stunned. I can't seal it? Swordsman nodded. You've already cultivated your physique. How can I seal it? I can only break it. Yi Xian was really hesitant this time. It was not easy for him to cultivate his physique to the godly state. If he broke it, it would mean that all his previous efforts would be for naught. Swordsman said, you have to think about it carefully. Yi Xian suddenly smiled. I won't think about it. Break it. Swordsman looked at Yi Xian. All or nothing? Yi Xian nodded. Swordsman nodded slightly. All right. Saying that, he pointed a finger at Yi Xian's chest. Boom. Yi Xian's eyes suddenly widened. His physique was instantly broken, leaving only his soul. A godly state physique was more fragile than paper in front of Swordsman. Swordsman looked at Yi Xian. Begin to reconstruct your physique. Yi Xian nodded. He sat cross-legged in space and began to reconstruct his physique. With his current strength, reconstructing his physique was a very simple matter. In less than half an hour, his physique was successfully reconstructed. Yi Xian looked at his physique with mixed feelings. His current physique was an ordinary physique. He was no longer an unkillable cockroach. At this time, Swordsman suddenly said, from now on, the only thing you can rely on is the sword in your hand. Yi Xian looked at Swordsman. Understood. Swordsman smiled. Let's go find our opponent. Saying that, he walked into the distance. Yi Xian hurriedly followed along with Xiao Ta. Along the way, Swordsman said, Swordsman, a sword is enough. From now on, you must have this belief in your heart. Other than the sword, everything else is a burden. Yi Xian nodded. All right. From now on, Yi Xian was a simple swordsman. Other than the sword, he had nothing else. He could only believe in the sword in his hand. Just like that, a big swordsman and a small swordsman walked into the depths of space. In an unknown star sector, the mysterious woman who was rushing at the front suddenly stopped. She seemed to have sensed something and her face instantly turned pale. Seeing this scene, the woman in white's expression immediately became gloomy. Mu Nyanyan's expression was also a little ugly. What's wrong? The mysterious woman said with a trembling voice, the seal I left in his body is gone. Mu Nyanyan frowned slightly. It's gone? The mysterious woman nodded. She stared at the depths of space in the distance, her entire face ashen. Tu suddenly looked at the mysterious woman. She slowly clenched her right hand and was about to make a move. Next to her, Mu Nyanyan suddenly said, just because it's gone doesn't mean he's dead. Tu and the mysterious woman looked at Nian Nian. Nian Nian said in a deep voice, it's also possible that the seal in his body has been broken by someone. The mysterious woman shook her head. There are only 3 swords that can silently remove my seal. His father is not in this universe, and that woman is not in this universe, and there's another person. At this point, she did not continue. At this moment, Mu Nyanyan suddenly said, don't think about the worst. As she said this, she looked into the depths of space. When that door tore through space, it left behind a trace. If we follow those traces, he must still be alive. Definitely. After saying this, she directly turned into a sword light and disappeared into the end of space. Tu coldly looked at the mysterious woman. If anything happens to him, I'll tear you apart. After saying this, she also turned into a sword light and disappeared into the end of space. The mysterious woman looked into the depths of space. She clenched her fists. He must be alive, he must. After saying this, she directly turned into a flame and disappeared into the end of space. Somewhere in space, Yi Xian walked slowly with the swordsman. The swordsman walked very slowly. There was not a hint of a swordsman's aura on him. If he was not holding a sword, perhaps no one would think that he was a swordsman. Yi Xian walked slowly. He had been constantly observing the door of disaster in the prison pagoda. This door of disaster was very obedient now. It was hiding on the 9th floor. On the 9th floor, there was also Xiao Ta. Xiao Ta floated in front of the door of disaster. He jumped up and down. Little gate, do you want to talk? The door of disaster did not respond. Xiao Ta said again, why don't you recognize me as your big brother? If you recognize me as your big brother, when Master and Xiao Bai come, I'll plead for you. Otherwise, you'll be beaten to death. And Xiao Bai, do you know Xiao Bai? She'll suck you dry. The door of disaster still did not respond. Xiao Ta suddenly knocked on the door of disaster. Hey, are you mute? The door of disaster still did not respond. Xiao Ta walked around the door of disaster. He chuckled and said, little gate, did you hit yourself silly? I have purple gas. Do you want me to heal you? There was still no response from the door of disaster. At this moment, Xiao Ta suddenly floated in front of the door of disaster. He looked at the door of disaster and said, little gate, if you don't want to recognize me as your big brother, that's fine too. You can recognize me as your father. How about that? At this moment, the door of disaster suddenly shook violently. It directly collided with Xiao Ta. Boom! The entire prison pagoda shook violently. Yi Xian was speechless. P.S. If you don't want to vote for me, then reward me. Chapter 1508. In the starry sky, Yi Xian was surprised. He was sure that this door of misfortune was sentient. Or rather, it had a spirit. However, this spirit did not show itself. At this moment, Swordsman suddenly laughed. This door isn't simple. Yi Xian nodded. He knew Swordsman's strength. For this door to be able to withstand one of Swordsman's sword attacks, he had to admit that this was a terrifying feat. Although this swordsman might not have used his full strength, it was still not an ordinary attack. Swordsman asked again, you left this door behind because you want to use it to find the root of misfortune? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Swordsman shook his head. With your current strength, it's best not to search for the root of misfortune because it's not something you can resist. Yi Xian nodded. I understand. However, it's better to leave it behind for now. Swordsman smiled. Sure. The two continued forward. Along the way, Yi Xian looked at the starry sky in the distance and asked softly, Senior, does this starry sky have an end? Swordsman shook his head. I don't know. Saying so, he looked at the starry sky around him and smiled. From the looks of it, this part of the universe should have no end. I also hope that it has no end. If there is an end and there are no strong opponents at the end, then there's no point in living. Yi Xian was speechless. This guy's words were too hurtful. This guy just wants to be defeated. Yi Xian looked at Swordsman. Senior, is your goal to be defeated? Swordsman laughed. To die. Yi Xian was puzzled. Don't you have any relatives? Swordsman shook his head. I only have my sword left. Only my sword left. Yi Xian was silent. It could be seen that this swordsman was a lonely person. Without any restraints, perhaps seeking defeat was his only desire to live. Seeming to have thought of something, Yi Xian asked again. Senior, is the sword Dao divided into realms? Swordsman thought for a moment and said, in my opinion, the Dao of the sword is divided into 3 realms. Yi Xian quickly asked, what realm? Swordsman laughed, first, common sword. Yi Xian blinked. Mortal sword. I've achieved it before. Swordsman shook his head. That's not really an ordinary sword. A true mortal sword was the kind of mortal that returned to its natural state. In order to achieve this, one must first achieve great accomplishment in sword Dao. This was similar to a person who, after reaching a peak, returned to his natural state and returned to being ordinary. This kind of ordinary is not simply ordinary, but ordinary after experiencing the peak, and you're ordinary. You are really ordinary, understand? Yi Xian was speechless. Swordsman continued, the realm of common sword is divided into 4 realms. The first realm, seeing a mountain as a mountain; the second realm, seeing a mountain is not a mountain; the third realm, seeing a mountain is still a mountain; and the fourth realm, seeing a mountain is not a mountain. Yi Xian was a little puzzled. A mountain is not a mountain? Swordsman nodded and pointed to the distant starry sky. Look at this vast starry sky, what do you see? Yi Xian said in a deep voice, the starry sky. Swordsman shook his head. Look again. Yi Xian looked at the distant starry sky. After a long time, he shook his head. It's still the starry sky. Swordsman smiled. What is the starry sky? Yi Xian was slightly stunned and then fell into silence. What was the starry sky? He could not answer this question. Because he had never thought of this question. Swordsman chuckled. What you know now is all within a rule. This rule is like a big circle that restricts everyone. Just like a fish in the sea, in its world, there is only water and no land. It is the same for humans. In the process of growing up, people will naturally be influenced by the surrounding environment and traditional thinking. In the process of thinking, they will often be bound by their own thinking framework, making it difficult for them to break through their current situation, and thus be stuck in a state of stagnation. The final realm of common sword is to jump out of the existing rules, jump out of the existing way of thinking. If you are always trapped in your previous knowledge during cultivation, it will be very difficult for you to have any new breakthroughs. As he said that, he looked into the distant starry sky. This is the starry sky, yes, but it can also be something else, what do you think? Hearing this, Yi Xian gripped the sword in his hand tightly. Suddenly, he felt as if he had opened up something. Swordsman said again, cultivating the sword is cultivating the heart, but do you know what cultivating the heart is? Yi Xian looked at Swordsman. Swordsman smiled. In many people's view, cultivating the heart is to purify the soul and cultivate the nature of the mind. In fact, it is not just that. Cultivating the heart is to cultivate one's own shortcomings. People must constantly look for their own shortcomings, and only then can they understand themselves more clearly. In fact, many people in this world do not dare to face their own hearts. Not only do many people not dare to face their own hearts, they have always been avoiding their own hearts, not daring to be their true selves. Yi Xian looked at Swordsman and said in a deep voice, Senior, you said to face one's heart, but what if one's heart is dirty and evil? Do you also have to face it and obey it? Swordsman smiled. Why not face it directly? If one's heart is dirty and evil, then change. Yi Xian shook his head. Many people will obey, so there are many evil people in this world. Swordsman smiled. This kind of person is a failure. Facing one's heart is not asking you to obey it, but to subdue it. In a certain stage, a person's greatest opponent in this life is not others, but themselves. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, in a certain stage? In other words, there is another stage? Swordsman smiled. For example, in my current stage, because I have subdued my heart, I now want to find a strong opponent, because only by failing can I find my own shortcomings, only then can I know how to become stronger. Yi Xian said softly, I understand. The path of Sword Dao Yi requires constant exploration, constant pursuit, and constant change. Swordsman smiled. You are worth teaching. Yi Xian looked into the depths of the starry sky. I want to find an opponent. Swordsman smiled. I will bring you there. Yi Xian turned to look at Swordsman. Senior, you just said that there are 3 realms in Sword Dao. What is above mortal sword? Swordsman smiled. Reach mortal sword first, then think about other things. You have to take it step by step. Yi Xian said with a smile, great. Saying so, he turned to look behind him. In fact, he was a little worried that the 5th dimension would miss them, but unfortunately, he did not know where he was. He could not go back even if he wanted to. However, it should not be a big problem, because the door of calamity had already left the 5th dimension. Without the calamity, Nian Nian and the others were definitely not afraid of that mysterious woman. He should work hard to improve his strength first. Especially now, with the guidance of senior swordsman, it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for him. Right now, he only wanted to become stronger. Only by becoming stronger could he change his fate. At this moment, Xiao Ta suddenly floated out. At this moment, Xiao Ta's body was covered in lightning. Obviously, this guy had been beaten up. Xiao Ta floated in front of Yi Xian. Young master, let's fuse. Yi Xian blinked his eyes. Fuse? Xiao Ta quickly nodded. After we fuse, I will be able to use you to display my powerful strength. And you will also be able to use me to display your powerful strength. Fuse. I want to kill that broken door. They actually don't recognize me as their father. They don't give me any face. Yi Xian was speechless. Swordsman shook his head and smiled. You are more mischievous than before. He had seen Xiao Ta in the past, but at that time, Xiao Ta was not so mischievous. As if he thought of something, he said, do you often hang out with that white guy and that horned little girl? Xiao Ta was a little surprised. How did you know? I play with Xiao Bai in area every day. Following them is fun. Swordsman shook his head. No wonder. Following those 2 little guys, no matter how honest a guy is, he will change. Yi Xian smiled. I will not fuse with you for the time being. Xiao Ta was a little puzzled. Why? After fusing with me, you will become very powerful. Yi Xian looked at the sword in his hand. Now, I want to rely on my sword to become powerful, and not other external objects. Xiao Ta was a little anxious. I am not an external object. I am your family's Xiao Ta. Young master, let's fuse. If I don't fuse, I can't beat that broken door. Yi Xian was speechless. Xiao Ta continued, as long as you fuse with me, I will give you treasures. I have a lot of treasures. They were all placed in the tower by Xiao Bai. Do you want them? Yi Xian was a little hesitant. The treasures left behind by that little guy were definitely not ordinary treasures. However, he still shook his head and refused. He had already given up on his God realm body. No matter how good the treasures were, they would not be able to attract him. Now, he only wanted to improve his Sword Dao cultivation base. Along the way, Xiao Ta kept begging, but Yi Xian was not moved. Seeing that he could not be persuaded, Xiao Ta returned to the prison pagoda. This time, he started to deceive the prison pagoda. He wanted to join forces with the prison pagoda to attack the door of disaster. In the starry sky, Yi Xian and Swordsman walked slowly. Just like that, after walking for about 3 days, the 2 suddenly stopped. In front of the 2 of them, there was a huge mountain. The mountain was like a huge sword hanging upside down in the starry sky. On top of the mountain, one could vaguely see an ancient palace. Yi Xian was a little curious. Senior, this is? Swordsman shook his head. I don't know. Yi Xian hesitated for a while and then said, what do we do now? Swordsman smiled. Go and challenge it. Yi Xian blinked. Me? Swordsman nodded. In this place, there is no one worthy for me to draw my sword. So, go and challenge it. Yi Xian looked at the mountain in the distance and then said, what kind of challenge? Swordsman smiled. Go directly. Be arrogant. Yi Xian was a little hesitant. Is it not good to be too arrogant? The sword cultivator smiled and said, no. Yi Xian nodded. He walked towards the mountain in the distance. Not long after, a powerful divine sense directly locked onto him. Feeling this divine sense, Yi Xian's expression instantly changed. What the hell is this place? The owner of this divine sense is so strong. A voice suddenly sounded in front of Yi Xian. What's the matter? Yi Xian subconsciously said, I'm asking for death. As soon as he said that, he was immediately stunned. F***ck, what did I say? Chapter 1509. Die. At this moment, Yi Xian's mind was in a mess. That wasn't something that could be said casually. Yi Xian glanced at the nearby swordsman. It's all this fellow's fault. I've actually put on an act as well. Meanwhile, the voice in front of Yi Xian resounded once more. Are you joking? Yi Xian hurriedly nodded. Yes. What a joke. To tell you the truth, I've come here to challenge the geniuses of your esteemed sect. Let's have a friendly spar. The voice said, you've come to challenge the sect? Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he nodded. Yes. He felt that he had to be a little arrogant. He couldn't lose in terms of imposing manner. Meanwhile, a formidable aura suddenly swept down from the peak of the mountain, and it was like a torrent that shot straight towards Yi Xian. The formidable aura instantly locked down the space around Yi Xian. This wasn't an ordinary expert. Yi Xian gazed at the swordsman. The swordsman grinned and showed no intention of attacking. Yi Xian understood now. He wanted him to attack himself. Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. He held the hilt of his sword in his right hand, and he was accumulating strength while waiting to attack. When the aura arrived over 10 m away from him, he suddenly drew his sword and slashed. Sword drawing technique. It was a pure Heavenren drawing technique. It wasn't enhanced by the energy of one's bloodline, physical strength, sword domain, or the energy of faith. It was Heavenren drawing technique. With a slash of the sword, a sword light fell straight down. However, the ray of light had only just descended when it shattered into nothingness. At the same time, Yi Xian's figure was blasted 3 kilometers away. As soon as he stopped moving, the space around him shattered, and his body instantly cracked apart. He'd heavily injured himself with a single strike. Yi Xian glanced at his body, and then he shook his head and laughed bitterly. His current combat strength was at least 50% weaker than before. If it was before this, then even if he couldn't resist this attack, his formidable physical body would still be able to resist it. But now, his body couldn't take it anymore. Yi Xian raised his head and looked into the distance. At this moment, a middle-aged man appeared in front of Yi Xian. The middle-aged man wore a white robe and a scarf on his head. He looked like a scholar. The middle-aged man glanced at Yi Xian, then looked at Swordsman. When he saw a swordsman, his face instantly turned solemn. Danger. That was his first impression of the swordsman. There weren't many things in this world that could make him feel danger. The middle-aged man asked in a deep voice, "You are?" Swordsman smiled and said, "I'm here to accompany this young friend." The middle-aged man glanced at Yi Xian, hesitated for a moment, and then said, "What are the two of you doing?" Swordsman said, "Let's compare notes." The middle-aged man finally understood. He was bringing his juniors to gain experience. He had done something like this before. Let's compare notes. When he thought up to this point, the middle-aged man grinned, then let the juniors have fun. Swordsman nodded, all right. The middle-aged man glanced at Yi Xian, and then he turned to look at the peak of the mountain, any second-generation disciple. Yi Xian's face instantly darkened when he heard this. Any second-generation disciple. He's looking down on me. As soon as the middle-aged man finished speaking, a ray of white light leaped up from the peak of the mountain. In the next moment, a young man appeared not too far away from Yi Xian. The young man wore a gray robe, had a handsome face, and held a spear in his hand. The middle-aged man gazed at the young man. Zhu Lian, don't go overboard. The young man nodded, understood. As he spoke, he gazed at Yi Xian who stood in the distance. Make your move. Yi Xian nodded, please. Qingcheng, Yi Clan, Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent and no virtue. From this moment onward, Yi Xian's position as crown prince shall be removed, and Yi Lang shall succeed him. The one who spoke was an old man in a black robe. Not too far behind the old man stood a young man with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides were the Yi clan's elders. Why? At this moment, a slightly timid voice suddenly resounded in the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor, and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. The young girl was called Yi Ling, and she was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian from his position, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. Yi Ling, what are you doing? The young girl called Yi Ling bowed to the people in the ancestral hall, and said timidly, Great Elder, my brother Yi Xian is a crown prince. Why did you remove his title for no reason? The Great Elder looked coldly at Yi Ling. This is a matter of the clan. What are you interrupting? Leave. Yi Ling was obviously afraid, and did not dare to look at the Great Elder, but she did not leave. Instead, she plucked up her courage and entered the ancestral hall. She bowed again to the elders on both sides. Dear elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan over the mining rights at Nanshan. He is fighting for the clan, and we don't know if he's dead or alive. Yet, the clan is using a groundless excuse to remove his title. This is really unfair. Impudent. The Great Elder suddenly raged. Whether he is removed or not, it's not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away. At this moment, the new crown prince Yi Lang suddenly laughed. You should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others. The Great Elder said coldly, then flog 30 times. Soon, 2 guards of the Yi clan rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists, and said angrily, This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years, and even now, he is fighting for the clan. The clan is so unfair to him. One of the guards glanced at the new crown prince Yi Lang, and he knew that this was his chance to show off. The guard sneered, Young Master Yi Lang inherits the title of crown prince, and it's everyone's wish. Why are you shouting? With that, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly swelled up, but she did not cry. She just held her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard, and smiled, What's your name? The guard hurriedly bowed, I'm Jianghu, greeting the crown prince. Yi Lang nodded, You're not bad. After I become the crown prince, I need 10 guards. You can be my guard from now on. Hearing this, Jianghu was overjoyed, and he hurriedly bowed deeply. I'm willing to go through fire and water for the crown prince, and I'm willing to die 1,000 deaths. Yi Lang nodded slightly, Drag him out. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall, so don't show any mercy, understand? Jianghu glanced at Yi Lang, and when he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. Immediately, he grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Jianghu seemed to have seen something, and he suddenly stopped. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe that was tattered, and there was blood everywhere. This person was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from the South Mountain. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's lips curled into a cold smile. Inside the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The great elder narrowed his eyes, and his expression was frighteningly dark. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Jianghu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. Who gave you the guts to touch my sister? When Jianghu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He hurriedly looked at Yi Lang, and just as he was about to speak, Yi Xian leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Pung! Jianghu felt a wave of dizziness, and he stumbled and fell. However, Yi Ling did not stop there. He charged towards Jianghu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, Yi Xian, he's my man. How dare you? Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Jianghu's chest. Pooh! Jianghu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly. Yi Xian looked up at him and said, your man? As he spoke, he stepped on Jianghu's face. Jianghu's face turned into a bloody mess, as he screamed, Prince, save me. Yi Xian did not care about Jianghu, as he walked to Yi Ling's side. Seeing Yi Ling's appearance, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced by a knife. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed out, brother, it hurts, it hurts. Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Jianghu and kicked Jianghu's head. Pung! Qingcheng, Yi Clan, Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as prince shall be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man in black robes. Not far behind the old man, there was a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides were the elders of the Yi clan. Why? At this time, a timid voice rang out in the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor, and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This little girl was called Yi Ling, and she was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian from his position, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. Yi Ling, what are you doing? The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to the people in the ancestral hall, and said timidly, Great Elder, my brother Yi Xian is a prince, why did you discard him for no reason? The Great Elder looked at Yi Ling coldly, this is a matter of the clan, why are you interrupting? Leave. Yi Ling was obviously afraid, not daring to look at the Great Elder, but she did not leave. Instead, she plucked up her courage and entered the ancestral hall. She bowed again to the elders on both sides. Dear elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan over the mining rights at Nanshan. He is fighting for the clan, and we don't know if he's dead or alive. Yet, the clan is using a groundless excuse to discard his position. This is unfair. Impudent. The Great Elder suddenly raged, whether he discards his position or not, it's not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away. At this time, the new prince, Yi Lang, suddenly laughed, you should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others. The Great Elder replied coldly, then flog her 30 times. Soon, 2 guards of the Yi clan rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists and said angrily, this is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years. Even now, he is risking his life for the clan. The clan is so unfair to him. One of the guards glanced at the new prince, Yi Lang. He knew that this was his chance to shine. The guard sneered, young master Yi Lang inherits the position of prince. What are you yelling about? As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly swelled up. However, she did not cry. She only covered her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled. "What's your name?" The guard hurriedly bowed. "Subordinate Jianghu greets the crown prince." Yi Lang nodded. "You're not bad. After I become the prince, I will need 10 guards. You can be my guard from now on." Hearing this, Jianghu was overjoyed. He quickly bowed deeply. "This subordinate is willing to go through fire and water for the prince." Yi Lang nodded. "Drag him away. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall. Don't hold back. Do you understand?" Jianghu glanced at Yi Lang. When he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Jianghu suddenly stopped as if he had seen something. Inside the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside the hall. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe. The robe was tattered and covered in blood. The young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's lips curled into a sinister smile. Inside the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The great elder narrowed his eyes, his face dark and gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Jianghu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. "Who gave you the guts to touch my sister?" When Jianghu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He quickly looked at Yi Lang and was about to speak. At this time, Yi Xian leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Pung! Jianghu felt a wave of dizziness, and he stumbled and fell. However, Yi Ling did not stop there. He charged at Jianghu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, "Yi Xian, he's my man. How dare you!" Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Jianghu's chest. Pooh! Jianghu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly. Yi Xian looked up at him and said, "Your man?" As he spoke, he stepped on Jianghu's face. Jianghu's face turned into a bloody mess, as he screamed, "Prince, save me!" Yi Xian did not care about Jianghu. As he walked up to Yi Ling, seeing Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced apart. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed. "Brother, it hurts, it hurts." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Jianghu and kicked Jianghu's head. Pung! Chapter 15:10. Somewhere in the starry sky, the swordsman stopped and turned to look at Yi Xian. "What do you think?" Yi Xian was silent for a moment before answering. "There are a lot of shortcomings." The swordsman said, "Tell me about it." Yi Xian said, "I relied too much on the strength of my physique. Without a strong physique, I'm not as confident as before." The swordsman laughed. "It's not that your physique can't be strong, because it's something that you've cultivated yourself. However, if you want to become a powerful swordsman, it's best not to rely on any external force before you've reached the level of a common sword. Because if you rely on external forces, your swordsmanship will stagnate. Just like earlier, if you had a strong physique, that woman wouldn't have been your match. But if you relied on your physique to defeat her, then you wouldn't have known the flaws in your swordsmanship." He paused for a moment before continuing, "Do you know your flaws?" Yi Xian looked at the swordsman. "Not fast enough." The swordsman shook his head. "The real fast isn't the sword, but the heart." Yi Xian was puzzled. "What do you mean?" The swordsman laughed. "Have you heard of the heart sword?" Yi Xian asked, "Using the heart to control the sword?" The swordsman shook his head. "It's not using the heart to control the sword, but rather, the heart is the sword, and the sword is the heart." Yi Xian shook his head. "I don't really understand." The swordsman laughed. What the heart thinks, the sword moves. This is a realm of fast swordsmanship. You should have heard of this realm before, but you haven't reached the limit of this realm. If you can reach the limit of this realm, your sword will be far faster than that woman. Yi Xian quickly asked, how can I reach the limit of this realm? The swordsman said, practice. Practice? Yi Xian frowned. How do I practice? Swordsman replied, it's just normal training. Yi Xian seemed to have thought of something. He opened his palm and a sword appeared in his hand. Peerless sword. He had almost forgotten about this sword. Yi Xian walked to the side and used the insta-kill slash again. As the sword stabbed out, the space 3,000 feet away suddenly shattered. It was still a very fast strike. However, Yi Xian knitted his eyebrows. Because this strike, whether it was in terms of strength or speed, was much weaker than when he was still in the immortal realm. At this moment, he finally realized how weak his sword Dao was. After losing the power of his bloodline and physical body, it was difficult for him to even kill a deity realm expert. Thinking of this, Yi Xian sighed softly. He had to admit that he had really gone astray all these years. Next to him, Swordsman suddenly said, it's not too late to correct it now. Yi Xian nodded. He sat down cross-legged, and then he started to recall the scenes of the battle between him and the woman. The woman's sword was very swift, even swifter than his own. That was why he'd been forced to use a move to take her down with him. Since the battle ended, he'd been in a passive position. It was swift. If it was in the past, then his sword would be even swifter than the woman when he had the support of his formidable physical body. But now, he didn't have his body at the immortal realm. How do I improve? How do I break through? Yi Xian fell into deep thought. Swordsman didn't speak another word. Around 2 hours later, Yi Xian suddenly stood up. He opened his palm, and then the supreme sword in his hand flew forward. The insta-kill slash. The sword flew out, and in an instant, it was already 10,000 zhang away. Yi Xian fell silent as he gazed at the sword that flew 3 kilometers away. He'd seen Situ Tingyun execute this attack in the past, and it was many times swifter than his own attack. Please continue to the next page. However, Situ Tingyun hadn't relied on any external forces. If Situ Tingyun could do it, why couldn't he? Thinking of this, Yi Xian sheathed his sword and performed the instant kill sword again. Just like that, Yi Xian practiced sword after sword. The swordsman watched from the side. He would say a few words from time to time, and every time he said something, Yi Xian would learn something new. Yi Xian kept repeating the insta-kill slash. In fact, he was no longer practicing the insta-kill slash. Instead, he was pursuing what Swordsman had said, what the heart thinks, the sword moves. Speed and strength, these were what he was pursuing now. This time, his speed and strength were different. Because he wasn't relying on any external force this time, and he was purely relying on the speed and strength of the sword Dao. 5 days passed in the blink of an eye. During these 5 days, Yi Xian swung his sword no less than a few tens of thousands of times every single day. Moreover, as he cultivated madly, the speed and strength of the insta-kill slash were gradually increasing, and this caused Yi Xian to be overjoyed. He wasn't afraid of suffering, but he was afraid of not gaining anything from his hard work. So long as he gained something, then it proved that he was working hard towards the right direction. A trace of a smile appeared on the swordsman's face as well. Was there a shortcut in the sword Dao? In Yi Xian's opinion, there definitely was. If he was willing, then he could allow Yi Xian to attain an extremely terrifying state in a short period of time. However, it was pointless. Yi Xian had to understand where his problem lay and correct it. Only then would he be able to progress further in the sword Dao. One had to take it step by step. Just like that, Yi Xian practiced bitterly day after day, and his insta-kill slash showed obvious improvement as well. Even though it wasn't as swift as when he possessed a body at the god rank realm, it was ceaselessly getting closer. At this moment, he wasn't just pursuing the pinnacle of the insta-kill slash. He was pursuing the pinnacle of the sword Dao's speed. While Yi Xian was cultivating, Lil Pagoda was still having a battle of wits and courage with the door of disaster and the prison pagoda within his body. Xiao Ta had successfully roped in the prison pagoda, and now there were two pagodas fighting against the door of disaster. However, it was useless. Even if two Xiao Ta joined forces, they still wouldn't be able to gain any advantage. However, the door of disaster kept a low profile. During this period of time, it stayed on the 9th floor. Other than occasionally counterattacking Xiao Ta and the prison pagoda, it basically didn't move at all. On this day, the swordsman suddenly arrived at the prison pagoda. He arrived at the top of the pagoda, and when he saw his sword, he smiled and opened his palm. The sword flew into his hand and trembled violently. The swordsman smiled and put away his sword. Then, he arrived at the 9th floor. When he arrived at the 9th floor, the door of disaster suddenly trembled and shrank into a corner. Obviously, it was very afraid of this swordsman. In fact, it was very, very sullen. It was originally about to complete its mission, but it didn't expect to meet such a perverted fellow halfway. This was great. Not only did it not complete its mission, but it also got itself involved. The swordsman walked in front of the door of disaster. He looked at the door of disaster and smiled. Where did you want to return to? The door of disaster did not respond. The swordsman asked again, are the people from your place strong? The door of disaster still did not respond. The swordsman smiled. I hope the people from your place are strong. Otherwise, it would be too boring. After saying that, he turned and left. That silhouette was as lonely as snow. Behind the swordsman, the door of disaster trembled slightly. Somewhere in the unknown starry sky, Mu Niannian and the other two women were still madly flying. This chapter is not finished. Please continue to the next page. In the starry sky, the three women increased their speed to the extreme. In front of them, there were still traces of the door of disaster tearing through the starry sky. However, these traces were becoming fewer and fewer. The mysterious woman was leading the group. Her speed was faster than Mu Niannian and Tu. The mysterious woman stared at the starry sky in the distance. During this period of time, she had been in a state of extreme fear. Fear. She had never been so afraid before. Beside her, Tu's expression was gloomy. During this period of time, she had wanted to attack the mysterious woman several times. However, she held back. This was because she didn't know whether Yi Xian was dead or alive. She didn't believe that Yi Xian was dead just like that. Tu slowly closed her eyes and said in a trembling voice, "Brother, wait for me." After saying that, her speed suddenly increased. The mysterious woman and Mu Niannian also increased their speed crazily. 10 days later, the three women stopped. This was because the traces in front of them had disappeared. The mysterious woman looked at the faraway starry sky as if she had lost her soul. Tu's expression was slightly unsightly. Since the traces had disappeared, it meant that they couldn't continue pursuing. As if she had thought of something, Tu gazed at the mysterious woman. She was about to attack again. Meanwhile, Nian Nian suddenly said, "Are you giving up just like that?" Tu gazed at Nian Nian, and she spoke softly, "Miss Tu, I don't believe that he died just like that." "What about you?" Tu fell silent. Mu Niannian gazed into the starry sky. "Miss Tu, let me ask you something. What do you think of Miss Su Chang's intelligence?" Tu spoke solemnly, "Very high. However, she disdains to play such tricks." When she spoke up to this point, she hesitated for a moment and said, "You're saying that she knew all along?" Mu Niannian shook her head, "I don't know. All I know is that she would absolutely not allow him to die so easily." When she spoke up to this point, she gazed at the mysterious woman. "Are you really unable to sense the door of disaster?" The mysterious woman shook her head, "I can't." Mu Niannian frowned slightly. "Then what about before?" The mysterious woman spoke softly, "I'm only able to sense the door of disaster when I'm targeting him. However, I'm unable to sense it exactly." Now, I can't sense its existence at all. Moon Yinyan spoke in a low voice. You can't sense it at all? The mysterious woman nodded. I can't. Moon Yinyan's face fell. Meanwhile, Tu spoke abruptly. Let's continue pursuing him. Then we'll wait for news from Miss Ding. Moon Yinyan and the mysterious woman gazed at Tu, and then Tu spoke softly. If Miss Ding is able to find that man, then we'll know if he's still alive. As she spoke, she transformed into a ray of light that vanished into the starry sky. Moon Yinyan glanced at the mysterious woman. I hope he's fine. As soon as she finished speaking, she chased after Chen Shi. The mysterious woman remained silent for a moment, and then she gazed into the starry sky while a trace of guilt flashed through her eyes. I'm sorry. You must live and give me a chance to make up for it. As soon as she finished speaking, she chased after Chen Shi. A month later. Yi Xian was still cultivating madly amidst the starry sky, and he executed strike after strike with his sword. The speed and power of his instant kill sword had reached the level of his physical body in the divine realm. However, it was far from sufficient for him. What he sought now was to reach the limit. He wanted to arrive at the limit of his speed, and then break through it to attain the state where his sword could move as he wished. End of this chapter. Chapter 15:11. In the starry sky, Yi Xian brandished his sword again and again. This endless starry sky was his cultivation ground. During this time, swordsmen did not leave and continued to guide him. Yi Xian naturally cherished this opportunity. In the past, he always felt that he lacked a good sword master. But now, with swordsmen's guidance, it could be said to be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for him. Just like that, another month passed. During this month, Yi Xian's instant kill sword was faster than when he was in the divine realm. However, it was still not enough. Pursue the limit, break through the limit. This was his goal. After about an hour, Yi Xian stopped. He glanced at his right arm. His right arm was already numb and it was not suitable for him to continue cultivating. He needed to rest. Yi Xian sat down cross-legged and began to use the purple energy to repair his body. As if thinking of something, he looked at Swordsman. Senior, how is my cultivation? Swordsman smiled. Not bad. Yi Xian asked again, is there anything that needs to be improved? Swordsman nodded. When brandishing your sword, you need to be calm and not impetuous. You also can't practice for the sake of practicing. You need to often stop and think about the shortcomings of this sword. Yi Xian nodded. Understood. Swordsman smiled. Your talent is not bad and you are willing to work hard. However, you are too impetuous. If you can settle down and calm your heart, it will not be difficult to reach the common sword realm. Yi Xian took a deep breath. From the Qing city to the fifth dimension, he had rarely been able to calm his heart and cultivate. Just like before, after Ting Yun imparted the insta-kill sword to him, he did not cultivate much. At that time, he had the power of bloodline and a physical body. Even if he did not cultivate, he could still unleash the power of the insta-kill sword. However, this made him unable to understand the essence of instant-kill sword. Simply put, he had always been too dependent on external forces. His sword Dao strength was pitifully weak. An hour later, Yi Xian stood up and continued to swing his sword. There were no shortcuts on the path of Dao Yi. Another month passed. In the starry sky, Yi Xian's eyes were closed. He opened his palm, and a sword suddenly flew out. Thousands of feet away, the space there was suddenly torn apart, and a ray of sword light appeared. Almost at the same time, countless sword lights flashed around him. Instant kill sword. It was not one instant kill sword, but 10 instant kill swords. With his current sword speed, he could execute 10 instant kill swords in an instant. Now, he had reached the limit of the speed of this instant kill. No, it should be said that he had truly reached his own limit. There was no limit to sword techniques. It was humans who had limits. Because if the swordsman were to use the insta-kill slash, the speed would definitely be faster. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the unparalleled sword appeared in his hand. He turned to look at the swordsman. The swordsman smiled. I can barely do it. Yi Xian asked in a deep voice, Senior, how can I break through my own limits? He was now one step away from the realm that the swordsman mentioned. Wherever the heart goes, the sword goes. The swordsman looked at Yi Xian. Fight. Only in battle can one's potential be stimulated in the shortest time, and only in the moment of life and death can one easily break through their own limits. Yi Xian nodded, understood. At this moment, he recalled the bloody battle in Qingcheng. At that time, although he was weak, every time he survived, he would become stronger. The swordsman smiled. Let's go. Yi Xian nodded. All right. After saying that, he put away his sword and walked towards the distant starry sky with the swordsman. Soon, the two of them arrived in front of the mountain floating in the starry sky again. As soon as they arrived, Gu Shi appeared in front of them. Gu Shi glanced at Yi Xian, and soon, he frowned because he realized that Yi Xian seemed to have changed. Yi Xian cupped his fists. Senior. Gu Shi collected his thoughts and smiled. I understand. After saying that, he turned to look at the peak of the mountain. Qing Yi. Buzz. The sound of a sword suddenly rang out from the peak of the mountain, and the next moment, a woman appeared in front of Yi Xian. Qing Yi wore a tight purple dress, and in her left hand was a sheathed long sword. As soon as she appeared, her eyes fell on Yi Xian. Gu Shi suddenly smiled. Don't overdo it. After saying that, he retreated to the side. In the distance, Qing Yi suddenly disappeared on the spot, and a ray of sword light suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. This attack was even faster than before, and it was even more powerful. Obviously, Qing Yi had become stronger during this period of time. In the face of this attack, Yi Xian's expression was calm, and he suddenly drew his sword and slashed. With a single slash, Qing Yi's sword light was directly shattered into pieces, and she herself was blasted hundreds of meters away. And as soon as she stopped and was about to attack again, a sword was already pressed against the center of her forehead. Instant kill. The surroundings suddenly became silent. The middle-aged man's face sank. The speed of Yi Xian's attack was not just a little bit faster than before. Qing Yi looked at Yi Xian. How did you do it? Yi Xian's sword was actually so fast that she couldn't even react to it. Yi Xian sheathed his sword and said with a smile, Practice. Practice like crazy. Qing Yi frowned slightly. That's it? Yi Xian said with a smile, There's more to it, more to it. Qing Yi went silent for a moment, and then she said, What sword technique was that? Yi Xian said, Instant kill. A senior sister of mine taught it to me. Qing Yi wanted to say something but hesitated. Yi Xian said with a smile, Do you want to learn it? Qing Yi looked at Yi Xian. I don't have anything to exchange with you. Yi Xian smiled lightly. I'll teach you for free. Qing Yi looked at Yi Xian. I don't deserve a reward without doing anything. Yi Xian said with a smile, Let's discuss it. Qing Yi went silent for a moment, and then she said, All right. As they spoke, the two of them directly started discussing it. Yi Xian directly taught the instant kill to Qing Yi. Seeing that Yi Xian really taught him that powerful sword technique, Qing Yi was a little surprised. Not only Qing Yi, but teacher Gu was also a little surprised. The sword technique that Yi Xian used was obviously not ordinary, and Yi Xian actually taught it to Qing Yi just like that. Seeing that Yi Xian was so generous, Qing Yi also said everything she knew. In the conversation with Qing Yi, Yi Xian learned a lot, because Qing Yi had many things that he could learn from her, especially her use of sword qi and her grasp of timing. These were things that he could learn from her. In addition, Yi Xian also learned about this place. This place was called the Nether River Star Field, and this place did not know about the fifth dimension. Not only did it not know about the fifth dimension, it did not even know about the whirling world or the Milky Way realm. This place was too far away from the fifth dimension. Even though he had only traveled from the fifth dimension to this place for less than a day, that was because of the door of disaster. The door of disaster shattered the starry sky along the way, and countless barriers of the universe were torn apart by it. Ordinary people could not do this. If he walked normally from this place to the fifth dimension, even with his speed, it would take at least 100 years. In fact, Yi Xian was a little puzzled. Where was the door of disaster taking him? At this moment, Swordsman suddenly asked, "Is there any particularly dangerous place in this star field?" Hearing this, Teacher Gu looked at Swordsman, hesitated for a moment, and then said, "There is a place, but it is too dangerous." With young friend's current strength, Swordsman smiled and said, "It's fine." Teacher Gu glanced at Swordsman, and then he pointed to the right, "Go a few 100,000 kilometers from here, and there is a mountain range called the Great Desolate Mountain Range. There are many powerful ancient beasts in the mountain range. That place can be said to be a forbidden area for us humans." Great Desolate Mountain Range. Swordsman nodded slightly, and then he looked at Yi Xian not far away. "Let's go." Yi Xian nodded, "Okay." Saying this, he looked at Qin Yi, and said with a smile, "Miss Qin Yi, farewell." After saying this, he and Swordsman were about to leave, but at this time, Teacher Gu suddenly said, "The two of you, please wait." Yi Xian and the Swordsman stopped in their tracks. The Swordsman looked at Master Gu, and Master Gu said in a deep voice, "You too, that place is very dangerous. Especially in the depths of the desolate mountains, there is an ancestor of ferocious beasts. This beast hates humans to the core. If you step into the desolate mountains and awaken the ancestor of ferocious beasts," at this point, he did not continue. At this time, Swordsman suddenly said, "Is this beast ancestor very strong?" Teacher Gu looked at Swordsman, and said seriously, "Very, very strong." Swordsman smiled slightly, "Isn't that a good thing?" Teacher Gu, Swordsman looked at Yi Xian, and said with a smile, "Let's go." After saying this, he turned around and left with Yi Xian. Teacher Gu looked at the Swordsman and Yi Xian in the distance, and frowned. Where did these two come from? They don't even know the Great Desolate Mountain Range, Qin Yi said in a low voice. Could it be that they came from that place? Teacher Gu shook his head, "Not very likely." Qin Yi said in a low voice, "That young man asked me a lot about our star field, and I can see that this is his first time coming here. If he didn't come from that place, where did he come from?" Teacher Gu shook his head and smiled, "Forget it. Maybe the two of them are just passers-by in our star field." After saying this, he turned and left. Qin Yi looked at Yi Xian's figure in the distance, and after a moment of silence, she said softly, "We will meet again, right?" After saying this, she shook her head and turned to leave. At the end of the distant starry sky, Swordsman suddenly said, "We need to find you a very strong opponent." Yi Xian asked, "How strong?" Swordsman thought for a moment, and then said, "The kind that can kill you." Yi Xian hesitated, and then said, "Wouldn't that be too strong?" Swordsman shook his head, "Not at all. If you want to break through your limits, you will have to fall into a desperate situation." After saying this, he looked at Yi Xian, and said with a smile, "If you can feel the aura of death, you should feel happy, because that proves that you can continue to improve. And I have wanted to feel the aura of death for hundreds of thousands of years. Do you know how painful it is to be invincible?" After saying this, he paused, and then said, "I feel very painful." Yi Xian. P.S. The days without a monthly ticket are so painful. Give me one. Oh, please. Chapter 15:12. How painful was it to be invincible? Yi Xian was speechless. Like hell he knew. He had never been invincible before. This swordsman's words were quite a blow to his confidence. However, he also knew that this swordsman was telling the truth, and that was the most fatal part. It was not scary for a person to act tough, what was scary was when he was acting tough for real. Swordsman suddenly said, "Cherish this feeling now." Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. "I'm afraid I still have a long way to go before I become invincible." Swordsman laughed. "Take it slow. At least you're like a swordsman now." Moreover, you can gain confidence from your sword, and that's a good thing. Confidence. Yi Xian looked at the sword in his hand. He had to admit that the current him was completely different from before. Previously, his confidence came from his physical body, the power of bloodline, and various external objects. But now, without these external forces and objects, he was still as confident as ever as he held the sword. The sword gave him confidence. This feeling was very comfortable. His confidence now came purely from his swordsmanship. As if he had thought of something, Yi Xian suddenly asked, "Senior, can I still use the power of bloodline and cultivate my physical body in the future?" Swordsman nodded. Of course you can. Whether it's the power of bloodline or your physical body, they're all cultivated by yourself. But before that, it's best for you to achieve the true common sword. If you can achieve the true common sword, you won't have to put the cart before the horse in the future, and you won't lose yourself in external forces. Yi Xian nodded. I understand. Swordsman laughed. What you need to do now is to break through your limits, so we need to find a strong opponent. You must be mentally prepared. Yi Xian looked into the distance and smiled. I'm already mentally prepared. Swordsman nodded slightly. That's good. Yi Xian suddenly asked, Senior, you've been to the pagoda and seen the door of disaster. What kind of existence is it? Swordsman shook his head. I'm not sure. Yi Xian said solemnly, this door can trigger the calamity. Swordsman said, there should be some kind of universal law in its body. This tribulation is born from the laws. Yi Xian frowned. Universal law? Swordsman smiled and said, it is a kind of law that exists in the universe. This law maintains the entire universe. Yi Xian asked, is it powerful? The sword cultivator smiled. It's just a so-so. Yi Xian was speechless. He realized that he couldn't ask this swordsman this kind of question, because this swordsman said it like that. It was absolutely not what he thought it was. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian asked again. Senior, the karmic line of disaster. Swordsman glanced at Yi Xian. I've already blocked those karmic lines of disaster for you. You'll be fine for the time being. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and then asked, Senior, if you leave, then these karmic lines of disaster. Swordsman smiled. You'll have to face it yourself. Yi Xian nodded. That's true. Karmic line of disaster. Yi Xian knew that he couldn't always rely on others to help him resist this karmic line of disaster. He had to bear it himself. Work hard. Yi Xian glanced at the sword in his hand and smiled. If Qing, and this swordsman could avoid all karmic lines of disaster, then he, Yi Xian, could do the same one day. Along the way, Yi Xian would occasionally ask swordsman some questions, and swordsman would usually answer. This made Yi Xian learn many things from the past. For example, this swordsman in front of him was once from Sword Sect. Somewhere in the unknown starry sky, Miss Ding and Enlancio were flying through the air. Both women were extremely fast. They were looking for that green-robed man. At this time, Miss Ding suddenly stopped. She looked into the depths of the starry sky, frowning slightly. Enlancio looked at Miss Ding. What's wrong? Miss Ding said softly, he's getting further and further away from us. Enlancio asked in a deep voice, can you contact him? Miss Ding shook her head. I'm not strong enough. Enlancio's face sank. Miss Ding suddenly said, let's look for someone else first. Enlancio asked, who? Miss Ding said, an old friend. With that, she brought Enlancio with her and vanished into the horizon. Great Desolate Mountain Range. Swordsman brought Yi Xian to the Great Desolate Mountain Range that Master Gu had mentioned. This mountain range stood towering in the boundless starry sky, and one couldn't see the end of it. Within this mountain range, the sound of breathing could be heard from time to time. The sound of breathing carried a formidable pressure that struck fear into the hearts of those who heard it. Yi Xian frowned. This mountain range isn't simple. Danger. That was what he felt at this moment. Swordsman suddenly pointed at the distant great desolate mountain range. Go 1,000,000 kilometers to the end of this mountain range. I'll wait for you there. Yi Xian blinked. Do I walk there myself? Swordsman nodded. Yes. Is there a problem? Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, then said, Can I just walk there? Swordsman looked at Yi Xian. You can't fly on a sword, rely on external objects, or use tricks. You can't rely on the Shao Ta in your body. If you violate any of these, then the fate between us will end here. Yi Xian nodded. I understand. He knew that Swordsman wanted to train him. Swordsman lightly patted Yi Xian's shoulder. Intelligence is also a part of strength. But at this moment, I hope that you don't use your intelligence. I hope that you can use your strength to fight your way out. It doesn't matter how long it takes. I'll wait for you at the end. After he finished speaking, he had already disappeared. Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. Passed through this great desolate mountain range. In fact, he did not have much confidence because he could feel the danger just by standing there. Moreover, there were many unknown auras. If it was before, he would still be confident because although he was only in the Tao realm, his physical body had already reached the immortal realm. But now, without his physical body, he was only a Tao realm swordsman. Moreover, he did not have the power of bloodline. Right now, he only had his sword. Other than that, there was nothing else. Sword. Yi Xian lowered his head to look at the sword in his hand. After a long moment of silence, he suddenly grinned. Isn't having a sword enough? With that, he walked towards the mountain range. Swordsman. He, Yi Xian, was now a swordsman. Soon, Yi Xian entered the mountain range. As soon as he entered the mountain range, his vision darkened. Because he was surrounded by towering ancient trees, he could not see the stars when he looked up. All he could see were endless branches. Under his feet, the weeds were tens of feet high. He could only walk on the grass. Yi Xian held the sword in his left hand. His expression was calm. He was ready to deal with anything. After walking for about half an hour, Yi Xian still did not encounter any danger. He did not even see a beast. However, his expression became more and more serious. Because this meant that there was a high chance that there were powerful beasts in this area. If it was before, he would sneak over. After all, his concealment technique was very good. But now, he could not do that. He was here to train. Not to play. He could only fight his way out. However, looking at the endless mountain range and unknown dangers before him, he was at a loss. As if he thought of something, Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. It's a little hard to adapt to suddenly losing my physical body and the power of bloodline. Dependence. Previously, he was too dependent on his physical body and the power of bloodline. After calming down, Yi Xian continued to move forward. His footsteps quickened. About 15 minutes later, Yi Xian arrived in front of a lake. This lake was thousands of feet wide. The lake water was so clear that one could see the bottom. At a glance, it was very beautiful. Yi Xian did not stop. He walked towards the opposite side. His hand was holding the supreme sword in his hand tightly. When he arrived at the lake surface, snowflakes suddenly floated above the lake. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian said softly, I'm just passing by. Really? More and more snowflakes appeared. Soon, the entire lake surface suddenly began to freeze. The surrounding temperature dropped in an instant. His body directly began to freeze. Yi Xian suddenly drew his sword and slashed. Sword drawing technique. As the sword slashed down, on the surface of the lake, a sword light pierced through the air. Countless snowflakes shattered. At this moment, the ice on the lake surface also cracked inch by inch. The entire lake surface began to crack inch by inch under this sword. At this moment, deep at the bottom of the lake, a white figure shot up into the sky. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Once again, he drew his sword and slashed down. Buzz! A sword cry shook the heavens and the earth. As Yi Xian's sword slashed down, the lake water in front of him suddenly exploded. As for the white figure, it was directly slashed to the depths of the lake. But in the next moment, the surrounding lake water suddenly turned into pieces of ice. These pieces of ice were like blades that slashed towards Yi Xian. Yi Xian sheathed his sword in his right hand. In the next moment, he drew his sword again and slashed. The sword light was like a waterfall. Rumble. The ice blades in front of him directly shattered and were annihilated. The sword light was like a rainbow, shooting straight towards the white figure in the distance. In the distance, the white figure suddenly transformed into a ball of white light and shot out. Rumble. The sword light directly exploded. A white figure directly appeared in front of Yi Xian. At the same time, an ice blade directly slashed towards the space between Yi Xian's eyebrows. With a calm expression, Yi Xian drew his sword again and slashed. Boom! An expanse of sword light erupted in front of Yi Xian, and then the white figure was blasted 300 m back. The space around the white figure trembled, and then the white figure gradually condensed into a woman. The woman had white hair, scarlet red eyes, and a long white tail behind her. A trace of surprise flashed through Yi Xian's eyes. What sort of demon beast are you? The technique that the demon beast had executed earlier was slightly similar to the techniques of humans, and it made him quite curious. The woman gazed at Yi Xian and spoke coldly. Do you only know how to draw your sword? Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, I was just passing by. A wisp of ridicule arose on the corners of the woman's mouth. Who gave you the courage? You. Right at this moment, the woman's pupils suddenly constricted. A ray of light flashed deep within her eyes, and a sword was already pressed against the center of her forehead when she was about to attack. Yi Xian gazed at the woman. I was just passing by. The woman looked at Yi Xian for a moment and said, Sorry to disturb you. With that, she suddenly transformed into a white stream of air and floated down to the bottom of the river. In a short while, she completely disappeared. Yi Xian. Chapter 15-13. Seeing the woman disappear, Yi Xian was a little dumbfounded. She left just like that? She didn't even say a word. After a while, Yi Xian put away his sword and continued to move forward. His expression was solemn. The demon beasts here were different from those he had encountered outside. Most importantly, the demon beasts here were not so stubborn. They were flexible and knew when to advance and retreat. Demon beasts were not scary. What was scary was that they were cultured. He knew that the road ahead might be a little difficult. An hour later, Yi Xian passed through the lake and entered a valley. On both sides of the valley, 2 mountains towered into the clouds. From time to time, birds would fly past. Yi Xian walked slowly in the valley. He was highly focused, and the sword in his hand was ready to be unsheathed at any time. He was best at sneak attacks, so he was afraid of being ambushed. After all, he did not have a strong physical body. If he was ambushed, he would be killed in one blow. About an hour later, Yi Xian entered the depths of the valley. In front of him, between the mountains, clouds and mist lingered, blurring his vision. Yi Xian held the sword in his hand tightly, his expression calm. He walked openly and did not hide his aura. In other words, if there were powerful demon beasts in this place, they would definitely be able to detect him. However, he did not feel the aura of demon beasts. Could there be no demon beasts? This thought popped up in Yi Xian's mind. However, at this moment, a mountain on his right suddenly trembled violently. The next moment, a black python broke out of the mountain. The python's head was as big as 3 bathtubs. Its bloody mouth was wide open, and it went straight for Yi Xian, wanting to swallow Yi Xian in one bite. Seeing the sudden appearance of the python, Yi Xian reacted extremely quickly. He suddenly leaped and slashed with his sword. Sword drawing technique. As the sword slashed down, a ray of sword light fell directly on the head of the python. Boom! The sword light was directly shattered, and Yi Xian was forced back nearly 100 feet. On the contrary, the python was not damaged at all. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian's face darkened. The body of this giant python was at least at the peak of the consolidation realm. Although he had not reached the god realm, it was still very terrifying. In the distance, the giant python looked down at Yi Xian. Human. His voice was deep and carried a sense of oppression. Yi Xian nodded. The giant python stared at Yi Xian, scram. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. In the next moment, he suddenly transformed into a ray of light that shot out explosively. Impudent. The giant python roared angrily. It directly collided with Yi Xian. Its strength was so great that it directly tore through space. Yi Xian's sword slashed at the python's head, and a sword light erupted from the python's head. Yi Xian retreated rapidly, but the python's head was also split open, and blood splattered. Seeing that it had been injured by a human, the giant python was furious. It roared and was about to speak when a sword suddenly pierced its right eye. Boom! Blood splattered from the python's right eye, but the sword did not stop. It went straight through the python's body. Roar! A shrill scream suddenly resounded from the sky. In the air, the giant python trembled violently, then fell from the sky, and finally smashed heavily to the ground. It was not dead yet. Yi Xian did not kill it, as long as he won. He opened his palm, and the sword flew back into his hand. Then, he walked into the distance. On the ground, the giant python stared at Yi Xian. Human. Yi Xian still did not look back. At this moment, the giant python suddenly roared, "Human, this lord will not let you go. You." At this moment, a ray of light suddenly descended from the sky, and finally stabbed straight into the giant python's head. Chi! The giant python's voice stopped abruptly. In the distance, Yi Xian opened his palm, and a sword broke out of the giant python's body, and finally fell steadily into Yi Xian's hand. Yi Xian inserted the sword into the scabbard and continued to move forward. Along the way, Yi Xian closed his eyes slightly, thinking about the previous battle with the giant python. If it was a normal battle, it would have been impossible for him to kill this giant python so easily. Because although his sword-drawing technique could break the giant python's defense, it was not fatal. The reason why he was able to kill this giant python with one sword was because of the instantaneous slash. Of course, it was not just an instantaneous slash, but he found the giant python's weakness. Eyes. Obviously, although the giant python's body was strong, its eyes were not. This reminded him of himself. Previously, he had a divine state body, and his eyelids were very hard, but his eyes did not have such a strong defense. If someone's sword was so fast that he could not react, and the sword pierced through his eyes, he might also be killed in an instant. Weakness. As a swordsman, one must be good at finding weaknesses, and starting from the weakness would yield twice the result with half the effort. Yi Xian recollected his thoughts and quickened his pace. About an hour later, he walked to the end of the valley. At the end of the valley, Yi Xian stopped, because in front of him was a giant python's head. It was the giant python that he had killed before. And on this giant python's head sat a man wearing a green robe, and the top of his head was densely covered with small snakes. These small snakes wriggled and looked extremely horrifying. The man looked at Yi Xian, and just looked at him. There was a trace of an evil smile on his face. Yi Xian did not speak and continued to move forward. When he was about 100 feet away from the man suddenly turned into a green light and disappeared. Yi Xian drew his sword and slashed. Boom! Where the sword light landed, green light swirled, and the man retreated repeatedly. However, the space around Yi Xian began to rot directly. Venom. Yi Xian's brows knit together slightly. He took a step forward and activated his sword domain. In the next moment, countless rays of light crisscrossed and intersected within his sword domain, and it didn't take long for the venom around him to be completely destroyed. The man in the distance frowned. Domain. Yi Xian glanced at the man, and the man spoke in a low voice. Human, why have you come here? Yi Xian gazed at the man. I'm just passing by. The man stared at Yi Xian. Passing by? Yi Xian nodded. The man gazed at Yi Xian for a short moment before he said, I'll let you pass. Yi Xian shook his head. Let's fight first. As soon as he finished speaking, Qinshi suddenly vanished on the spot, and a strand of sword light appeared in front of the man. The man's eyes narrowed slightly as he suddenly smashed his fist forward, and the space around him trembled. Rumble. The sword light was blasted apart, and the man was pushed over 100 m back. He just stopped when Yi Xian appeared in front of him again, and then Yi Xian swiftly drew his sword and slashed. A trace of ferocity flashed through the man's eyes, and then he swiftly raised his hands. In an instant, the space where he and Yi Xian resided had turned dark green. Yi Xian immediately withdrew his sword and retreated 300 m away. He gazed at his sword. The supreme sword had turned dark green, and it was being corroded. Fortunately, it possessed the ability to repair itself. However, his right hand didn't possess the ability to repair itself, so a large portion of it had been corroded to the point his bones were visible. If he hadn't retreated quickly, then not to mention his hand, even his entire body would have been crippled. After all, his body didn't possess the ability to repair itself. The man gazed at Yi Xian. Do you still want to fight? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly vanished on the spot, and then a strand of sword light flashed. The man took a step forward and smashed his fist forward, and countless strands of green liquid swept out from his fist. Poison. When facing the poison, Yi Xian immediately activated the sword domain. In the next moment, countless rays of sword light slashed down towards the man. This time, the man actually didn't dodge at all, and he allowed Yi Xian's sword to stab his chest. However, Yi Xian's sword had merely pierced half an inch into his chest before it was unable to go any further. On the other hand, Yi Xian's expression changed drastically, and he instantly retreated explosively by over 1 kilometer. As soon as he stopped moving, the supreme sword in his hand had turned dark green. Moreover, a strand of formidable poison was moving along the sword and spreading towards his right hand. Yi Xian's right hand suddenly shook, and then a strand of formidable sword intent surged out from it. The poison was eliminated, but the skin on his right hand had been completely corroded. Yi Xian's face fell when he witnessed this scene. The man gazed at Yi Xian from afar. You've come to temper yourself. Yi Xian didn't answer the man. He gazed at the supreme sword in his hand. Why was my sword unable to resist this poison? It's definitely not because of my sword. My sword isn't strong enough. He didn't execute Instakill because he wanted to temper his ability in close combat. Instakill was very formidable, but if a demon beast's physical defense was at the god rank realm, then his Instakill would be useless. At that time, it would be a competition of close combat. However, he hadn't imagined that the man's poison would actually be so formidable. Under the circumstances that he didn't execute Instakill, it was utterly impossible for him to attack. Meanwhile, the man spoke again. Do you still want to fight? Yi Xian glanced at his right hand. His right hand had almost recovered. Even though he didn't have the undying bloodline, his body possessed a certain level of ability to recover. Of course, it was far inferior to the undying bloodline. If he had the undying bloodline, then he could bathe in this poison. Unfortunately, he didn't. Yi Xian restrained his thoughts and gazed at the man. In the next moment, he vanished on the spot. In the distance, the man's eyes narrowed slightly, and then he suddenly clenched his fists. In an instant, the space around him turned dark green. Poison. Suddenly, a strand of mysterious energy enveloped the man. In the next moment, countless rays of light crisscrossed and slashed within the sword domain, and the poison was instantly slashed into pieces. At the same time, a sword slashed towards the man's head. The man frowned slightly. He was just about to attack when the sword suddenly vanished. The man was slightly stunned. In the next moment, he swiftly turned around and smashed his fist forward. A strand of light slashed from his fist, but it vanished as soon as it came into contact with his fist. In the next moment, countless rays of light appeared around the man. Hiss! 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 Numerous sounds of slashing resounded incessantly. However, it only lasted for an instant. An instant later, the rays of light and the sword domain had vanished, and Yi Xian had returned to where he stood earlier. At this moment, the man's entire body was densely covered in scars. The man was just about to attack when Yi Xian had returned to where he stood earlier, and he was stunned. But in the next moment, Yi Xian had appeared in front of him again. A few dozen rays of light flickered around the man, but Yi Xian had returned to where he stood in an instant. This stunned the man who was about to counterattack. Because Yi Xian had fled by the time he was about to counterattack. Exhaustion. Fleeing after touching him a few times. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly vanished on the spot again. The man's pupils constricted, and he smashed his fist forward. However, he was stunned by this punch. Because Yi Xian hadn't attacked at all. His punch had struck a lonely figure. But right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly vanished once more. The man's expression changed abruptly because a sword had arrived directly above his head. The man clenched his fists tightly, and then countless strands of poison swept out from within him. However, Yi Xian had returned to where he stood at the instant the poison appeared. The poison had struck loneliness as well. Yi Xian was about to attack again when the man suddenly said, "Stop." Yi Xian gazed at the man, and the man gazed at Yi Xian. "Big brother, I surrender. You can leave." As he spoke, he moved aside and made way for Chen Shi. Yi Xian was speechless. Chapter 15-14. At that moment, the man felt aggrieved. This was because speed was his weakness. His speed could not match up to Yi Xian's. Hence, if Yi Xian used this shameless method and Yi Xian's sword could break through his defense, there was nothing he could do. He could only admit defeat. If this went on, he would be exhausted to death. Yi Xian looked at the man and blinked. Not fighting anymore? The man shook his head. Not fighting anymore. Admit defeat. Go away. Yi Xian was speechless. In fact, he was fighting with all his might. This was because he had learned a new way of fighting. In the past, he relied on his strong physique and bloodline power to face everything head-on. Of course, he could take it head-on. However, this made his swordsmanship very monotonous. What if he could not take it head-on? It was just like when he met someone as strong as the third lady. He still remembered the sparring session with the third lady. From the beginning to the end, he was completely suppressed. Why? Because he did not know how to change. If he met someone weaker than him, he could take it head-on. However, what if he met someone stronger than him? Swordsmanship was not a static thing. Just like earlier, he chose to take it head-on, but that would result in both of them suffering. This was because the man's venom could pose a threat to him, but after he changed his method, he was able to suppress the man. In the past, his swordsmanship had reached the stage of sword transformation, but at this moment, he finally understood what transformation meant. Thinking of this, Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. He was glad that he met that swordsman. Otherwise, he would still be lost in external forces. There were some things that others said were useless. Only those who experienced it themselves would understand the truth. Just like when people say that it hurts to be cut by a knife, you would know the pain. However, if the knife did not cut you, you would not know how painful it was, and you would not know what it felt like. At this moment, he gradually understood the real reason why swordsmen asked him to leave this mountain range. Yi Xian sheathed his sword and looked at the man. Sorry for the offense. After that, he continued to move forward. He came here to gain experience. If it wasn't necessary, he naturally wouldn't make enemies. Meanwhile, the man suddenly said, "You want to walk out like this?" Yi Xian stopped in his tracks. He looked at the man and nodded. Yes. The man shook his head. You won't be able to leave. Yi Xian smiled and asked, why? The man looked at Yi Xian. You'd better go back now. Otherwise, you'll definitely die inside. Yi Xian was puzzled. Why do you say that? The man said indifferently, your arrival has already alarmed us. Right now, countless greater demons already know of you. There are many great demons ahead waiting for you. They are all betting on how far you can go. Yi Xian blinked. You all know me? The man nodded. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before he said, is it really that exaggerated? The man said calmly, it has already been close to 100 years since a human has set foot here. As soon as you step in here, we can smell the scent of a human. Yi Xian smiled sheepishly. You won't gang up on me, right? The man was expressionless. Don't worry, we won't gang up on you. We don't want to gang up on you. But I can tell you that the road ahead of you will be very difficult. Yi Xian said solemnly, what rank do you belong to here? The man glanced at Yi Xian. I refuse to answer this question. Yi Xian was speechless. The man didn't say anything else. He turned around and left. Soon, he disappeared into the distance. Where he stood, Yi Xian was silent for a moment before he continued forward. Fight your way out. This was the mission that swordsman had given him. Yi Xian gripped the sword in his hand tightly and smiled coldly. When have I ever been afraid of anyone? Soon, Yi Xian disappeared at the end of the valley. Out of the valley, there was a vast plain with no end in sight. Yi Xian continued forward. After walking for about 15 minutes, the ground in front of him suddenly began to tremble. Yi Xian stopped and looked into the distance. At the end of his line of sight, he could vaguely see a demon beast. This demon beast was huge and had 6 legs. On its back were 2 huge pairs of black wings. As the wings flapped, the space in front of them was directly torn apart. At this moment, this demon beast was charging toward Yi Xian. At the same time, a powerful aura directly locked onto Yi Xian. The speed of the demonic beast was getting faster and faster, and its aura was getting stronger and stronger. When it was only 10,000 feet away from Yi Xian felt as if a magnificent army was charging towards him. It was unstoppable. Yi Xian's expression was extremely solemn. He gripped the sword in his hand tightly in his left hand. He had never felt such a powerful aura before. The mysterious woman and the others very rarely released their aura. Meanwhile, the demon beast was growing faster and faster, and its aura was actually increasing explosively at an extremely swift speed. Moreover, the space in front of Yi Xian had actually started to warp. I can't go against it. Such a thought suddenly arose in Yi Xian's mind. Yi Xian's face was gloomy. He knew that he'd lost the initiative. At this moment, he'd been completely crushed in terms of aura. Retreat? If he retreated, then he'd be in an absolutely disadvantageous position. Moreover, he couldn't retreat because his opponent's aura had completely locked down this area of space. Attack? At this moment, he'd lost the initiative. If he attacked, then he could only go head-on against his opponent's aura. He wasn't confident at all. Yi Xian felt slightly aggrieved. At this moment, he thought of his body at the God realm. If he still had his body, then would he have to suffer such grievances? Without giving it any further thought, Yi Xian took a step forward, and his sword domain directly enveloped the demon beast that had charged towards him. However, in an instant, his countenance turned pale. At the same time, his sword domain started to crack inch by inch. At this moment, Yi Xian couldn't be bothered about anything else, and he immediately drew his sword and slashed. Bang! An expanse of sword light descended, and then Yi Xian's figure was blasted flying. He flew for over 3 kilometers before he smashed onto the ground, and he smashed open a hole that was over 30 m deep. Within the hole, Yi Xian's right hand trembled while blood sprayed incessantly from his mouth. He'd been heavily injured by this strike. Strength. This time, he hadn't just been suppressed by the demon beast's imposing aura, he'd even been suppressed by its strength. The demon beast's strength far surpassed his strength. After all, he didn't possess the strength of his body anymore, so his pure strength of the sword Dao couldn't compare to that demon beast. Yi Xian didn't give it any further thought and immediately crawled up from the ground. Meanwhile, the demon beast that far surpassed him leaped up and smashed towards him. This collision was like a mountain smashing towards him, and Yi Xian's expression changed abruptly. He suddenly stomped his foot on the ground and transformed into a ray of light that vanished on the spot. When he appeared once more, he was over 100 m away, and the expanse of space where he stood earlier had collapsed. Yi Xian's eyelids twitched when he witnessed this scene. Because the strength of this demon beast was even stronger than his body at the god realm. The demon beast immediately turned around after its attack missed, and it gazed at Yi Xian with a ferocious glow in its eyes. Yi Xian held his sword in his right hand while blood was still flowing from the corners of his mouth. Right at this moment, the demon beast suddenly vanished on the spot. Yi Xian's pupils constricted abruptly. Damn it! Not only is this fellow's strength so formidable, his speed is actually so swift as well. Yi Xian didn't give it any further thought and immediately executed instakill. This strike slashed directly at the demon beast's right eye. However, right at this moment, the demon beast suddenly closed its eye. Bang! Yi Xian's sword was directly blasted away. Yi Xian was stunned. Damn it! What's that even possible? Meanwhile, the demon beast had already charged over to him, and Yi Xian's expression changed drastically. He was utterly unable to dodge at such a distance, and he didn't even have his sword in his hand. So, he could only use his body to go against it. He had no choice but to go against it. Yi Xian suddenly crossed his arms before pushing them forward. Bang! Along with the sound of 2 bones breaking, Yi Xian's figure was blasted flying for over 10 kilometers, and he spat out a few mouthfuls of blood essence as soon as he stopped. The demon beast didn't attack again, and it just gazed at Yi Xian with eyes filled with ridicule. So weak? I've been looked down upon. Yi Xian glanced at the demon beast. At this moment, the bones in his arms had been shattered. Regardless of whether it was in terms of speed or strength, he didn't have any advantage at all. How should I fight it? Flee? Running away was the best choice. However, he didn't want to flee. Can I not use my sword just because I don't have my hands? Yi Xian issued a command in his heart, and the supreme sword in the distance suddenly transformed into a ray of light that slashed at the demon beast. However, the demon beast didn't dodge at all and allowed the sword to strike its body. Bang! The ray of light shattered while Yi Xian's sword was blasted away, and there was only a mark on the demon beast's head. Yi Xian was speechless. The demon beast gazed at Yi Xian and laughed with ridicule. That's it? Yi Xian fell silent. Now, he'd realized how abnormal his strength was. If one's body was sufficiently strong, then one would be invincible. Right at this moment, the demon beast suddenly leaped up and collided with Yi Xian again. Yi Xian's pupils constricted, and he tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and floated backwards. He just floated away when the space in front of him had turned pitch black. Yi Xian seemed to have thought of something when he saw that pitch black space, and he suddenly stomped his right foot on the ground, causing a mysterious force to envelop the demon beast. Darkness. At the instant the darkness appeared, the pitch-black space where the demon beast resided started to explode apart, and the demon beast was blasted over 100 m away. At this moment, numerous cracks had appeared on its body. Yi Xian was delighted when he witnessed this scene. Darkness. The power of the darkness depended on the amount of dark matter energy, and after the demon beast crashed into that space, the dark space was filled with dark matter energy. He directly used the darkness to detonate the dark matter energy in that space. He hadn't expected the power to be so great. As if he'd thought of something, Yi Xian's mind moved, and an illusory dark energy sword suddenly condensed in that dark space. In the next moment, the sword slashed towards the demon beast in the distance. This sword didn't just contain the darkness, it also contained the sword domain. The power of the two domains combined. The demon beast didn't dodge and chose to take it head-on. Boom! The sword slashed against the demon beast's head, and the demon beast retreated over 100 m away. At the same time, a bloody mark appeared on its head. The demon beast was stunned. Its defense had been broken. The demon beast looked at Yi Xian, and Yi Xian twisted his buttocks and smiled wickedly. That's it? That's it? That's it? The demon beast was speechless. P.S. Asking for votes. Asking for support. Chapter 15:15. The demon beast was infuriated. It leaped up and smashed towards Yi Xian. This collision was simply capable of obliterating the world, and the space in its path collapsed inch by inch. Yi Xian's eyelids twitched when he witnessed this scene. Damn it. This demon beast is really strong. He didn't give it any further thought, and he issued a command in his heart. The supreme sword in the distance suddenly transformed into a ray of light that slashed towards the demon beast. At the same time, he retreated explosively. Bang! His sword had just struck the demon beast's head when it was blasted flying. But at this moment, Yi Xian had retreated over 1 kilometer away. The demon beast was just about to attack once more when the distant Yi Xian grinned instead. The demon beast's expression instantly changed drastically when it saw Yi Xian smile. Because the space it was in had already collapsed from the collision, and it was within this spatial black hole. Moreover, it was filled with dark matter energy. The demon beast was about to retreat when Yi Xian suddenly said, "Explode." Bang! The pitch-black space suddenly exploded, and all the dark matter energy inside was detonated by Yi Xian with the dark domain. This explosion was simply capable of obliterating the world. With the demon beast at the center, the space in an area of over 3 kilometers was instantly turned pitch black. At this moment, both man and beast were within a spatial black hole. When the demon beast stopped moving, many of its scales had exploded apart, and it was badly mangled. However, this wasn't the end of it. Because both it and Yi Xian were within a dark space, and there was boundless dark matter energy here. Yi Xian grinned as he gazed at the demon beast, and then he issued a command in his heart. In an instant, the dark matter energy in the surroundings suddenly transformed into numerous energy swords. In an instant, Yi Xian had transformed into over 100,000 energy swords. The demon beast's expression instantly changed when it saw those energy swords. It started to retreat slowly. Yi Xian suddenly took a step forward, and his sword domain enveloped the demon beast. In the next moment, he suddenly roared furiously, "Explode." As soon as he finished speaking, the energy swords transformed into rays of sword light that slashed towards the demonic beast. The pupils of the demon beast constricted abruptly. Its wings suddenly unfolded, and then they transformed into a wing shield that blocked in front of it in a defensive posture. Rumble. In the blink of an eye, one explosion after another sounded out from within the black hole. This continued for a full 15 minutes before the energy swords finished exploding. By this time, the demon beast had been forced back more than 3,000 meters. At this moment, the demonic beast's appearance could not be said to be a little miserable. This was because its pair of wings had been shattered and its body was covered in bloody sword wounds. Blood spurted out from its body like a fountain. Fortunately, its body was big enough. Otherwise, it would have died from the spurting. At this moment, Yi Xian's face was extremely pale. Weakness. Right now, he felt incomparably weak. Controlling 2 domains and so many sword chi was extremely taxing on his stamina. That attack just now had almost exhausted him. After losing his God realm body, his body was not as good as before. The demon beast suddenly raised its head and gazed at Yi Xian, and its eyes were filled with killing intent and viciousness. Human. You've infuriated me. Yi Xian blinked and said, look around you. The demon beast glanced at the surroundings. At this moment, it and Yi Xian were still within the black hole. Moreover, the black hole had grown even larger from the force of the attack just now. The demon beast's eyelids twitched when it witnessed this scene. It noticed that Yi Xian's strength was much stronger within such a black hole. Yi Xian issued a command in his heart, and then the dark energy in the surroundings suddenly started trembling. It didn't take long for over a dozen energy swords formed from dark energy to appear in front of Yi Xian. The demon beast's face twitched when it witnessed this scene, and it stared fixedly at Yi Xian. Human. Do you dare use a sword? What the fuck? Yi Xian's jaw almost hit the floor when he heard this, and he gazed at the demon beast with slight disbelief. Are you even human? The demon beast roared furiously, I'm not human. Yi Xian was speechless. The demon beast stared fixedly at Yi Xian. Human. Do you dare to fight me without using a sword? Yi Xian gazed at the demon beast and shook his head. I'd thought that my skin was thick enough, but I never expected that there would be someone even thicker. Tell me, if I don't use a sword, then what should I use? Fight you with my head? The demon beast roared furiously, as long as you don't use a sword, you can use anything. Yi Xian was speechless. Damn it. Is this demon beast underage? It's actually speaking such childish words. As if he'd thought of something, Yi Xian's pupils constricted, and he gazed at the demon beast. Damn it. You're buying time. As soon as he finished speaking, the black holes in the surroundings actually started to recover slowly. There were laws in the world, and so long as space wasn't directly obliterated, then it could be recovered. At this moment, the space in the surroundings was automatically recovering. This demon beast wasn't stupid, but it was very shrewd. This guy had been stalling for time. The demon beast looked coldly at Yi Xian. Human, you're not that stupid. As it spoke, the surrounding space had already recovered by 60 to 70%. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian's face suddenly sank, and as if he'd thought of something, he suddenly looked at the demon beast. You seem to be badly injured. The demon beast sneered. Aren't you also badly injured? Yi Xian blinked. Do you have any other enemies in this mountain range? Hearing this, the demon beast frowned. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian chuckled. If we continue to fight, both sides will only suffer. How about this, let's both recuperate first, and then continue fighting after we've recovered. He needed time now as well because the bones in his arms had been shattered by this demon beast. But it was good because it allowed him to comprehend the combination of the sword domain and darkness domain. It could be said that his sword would become even stronger after they were combined. Especially when his opponent or himself shattered the space in the surroundings. Under such circumstances, his combat strength would increase by an unknown amount while he was within the sword domain. The sword domain naturally couldn't be considered as an external force. Moreover, he'd even combined the sword domain and darkness domain. This could be said to be an extension of his sword Dao. The demon beast fell silent when it heard Yi Xian. It was naturally not stupid, and it knew that if they continued fighting, then it was very likely that both sides would suffer heavy injuries. Moreover, if it were to suffer heavy injuries now, then once its enemy took advantage of the situation, then it would be extremely disadvantageous to it. After all, it didn't have any deep enmity with this human before it, and they were merely on different sides. When it thought up to here, the demon beast gazed at Yi Xian. Then let's rest for a while before we continue fighting. Yi Xian nodded. All right. The demonic beast slowly retreated, but Yi Xian did not move. He had to watch the demonic beast retreat. Otherwise, if the demonic beast launched a surprise attack, it would be very difficult for him to defend against it in his current state. After the demonic beast left, Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the ground and began to recuperate. Without the power of the bloodline, he could only use Xian Qi to repair his body. Although it was very slow, he had no other choice. While he was recuperating, he kept thinking about the fight with the demon beast. In the beginning, he was crushed by the demonic beast's aura, which led to him being suppressed. Imposing manner. Yi Xian took a deep breath. He had used his sword force before, but he realized that his force was much weaker than the demonic beast's. What was momentum? Yi Xian fell into deep thought. He suddenly discovered that after he abandoned his physical body and bloodline power, he could discover his own inadequacies at every moment. There were simply too many inadequacies. Just like that, after about 2 hours, Yi Xian's arms recovered to their original state, and the injuries on his body had also recovered by 80% to 90%. Yi Xian stood up and moved his body. The bones in his body immediately made cracking sounds. Yi Xian took a deep breath. He opened his left hand and the unparalleled sword appeared in his hand. Looking at the sword in his hand, Yi Xian smiled slightly and continued forward. He realized that the moment he held the sword, he was more confident than before. This confidence was something that he had fought for. Yi Xian continued forward. After about 2 hours, he saw the demonic beast that fought with him earlier. At this moment, the demonic beast's injuries had almost recovered. The demonic beast looked at Yi Xian with a much calmer gaze than before. Yi Xian suddenly smiled and said, "Come and fight." As soon as his voice fell, he suddenly charged towards the demonic beast. He was charging. The demonic beast was instantly stunned when it saw Yi Xian suddenly charge over. This fellow is actually taking the initiative to attack. When Yi Xian charged towards the demonic beast, he had a smile on his face as if he was certain that he would be able to eat the demonic beast. At the same time, a strand of sword energy enveloped the demonic beast. The demonic beast frowned slightly as it gazed at Yi Xian. Yi Xian's gaze and smile made it feel very uncomfortable, and it felt like Yi Xian was certain that he would be able to eat it. The demonic beast suddenly leaped up and directly collided with Yi Xian. This collision caused the space around it to tremble, but it didn't shatter. Obviously, it had restrained its strength. It had no choice but to retract its strength. Once space shattered, then this human's combat strength would instantly soar. It was still slightly afraid of those two domains. The human and beast had chosen to fight head-on as soon as they met. When Yi Xian arrived above the demonic beast's head, he suddenly drew his sword and slashed. Sword drawing technique. This strike directly tore space apart. At the same time, the sword domain appeared along with it. Bang! Yi Xian's sword struck the demonic beast's head. In an instant, his figure was blasted flying while the demonic beast was blasted down from the sky by the formidable force within Yi Xian's sword. In the end, it crashed heavily onto the ground. As soon as it crashed onto the ground, the demonic beast stood up, and it raised its head to look at Yi Xian who was in the distance. At this moment, Yi Xian was already over 1 kilometer away from it. The demonic beast revealed a savage smile and was about to attack. However, right at this moment, a crack resounded as the space in front of it collapsed completely. In an instant, the space in front of it had become pitch black. The demonic beast's expression changed drastically when it witnessed this scene, and it was about to retreat. However, right at this moment, countless dark energy swords had suddenly appeared within the darkness. In the next moment, these dark energy swords shot violently towards it. Moreover, it possessed the sword domain. The demonic beast's face twitched slightly. This time, it didn't choose to go head-on against Chen Qi's attack. It just turned around and leaped, and it instantly appeared 3 kilometers away. Yi Xian was stunned when he witnessed this scene. Damn it! This fellow isn't going to go head-on against me? The demonic beast gazed at Yi Xian from afar. It didn't move, and it was waiting for the shattered space to repair itself. On the other hand, Yi Xian naturally understood the demonic beast's intentions. So, He just didn't allow the space to repair itself, and he constantly used his swords to destroy the space in front of him. Just like that, the human and the demonic beast stood in confrontation. This confrontation lasted for an entire day and night. Neither was willing to retreat. In the distance, the demonic beast gazed at Yi Xian and sneered. "Human, aren't you tired?" Yi Xian fell silent. "Damn it. This fellow intends to fight me to the end." You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.